All right, so 1 year ago today, DMC5 dropped, and I actually have an online stream of that one actually still. Maybe I might do that again. Oh no, I should have done it on last night. Whatever, not important. Yeah. So me and Mangler are gonna be going over sort of just the game in general. 1 year retrospective, I think would probably be the best way to call this.
Yeah, just our thoughts on well, pretty much everything we got out of the game, what we wanted, what we still like, what we didn't want, what we wanted to change, that kind of thing. Story, gameplay.
If you watch the streams over the course of the last year, you probably already know most of this. But I think it's fair to say a certain number you don't watch those. So what would you be compiling them?
Yeah. It's also we've never done I don't think we've ever done a video in which we've taken all of our thoughts and we've compartmentalized it into one section where people can listen to them.
Nope.
And into a video just dedicated to those thoughts rather than in a spiel over the course of a stream. And it's a little bit harder to
Pin
find.
down.
So we thought this format would be a little bit more appropriate.
Yeah. There will be a second stream going on later tonight, and I will have probably a third video up today as well regarding the trailers. But for now, we're just going to be focusing on the core game as it came out. Uh, we might mention some other things. Like I'm not saying up rules or anything. I'm just saying like that's the general idea here.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. um,
All right, so
so
starting off with story and narrative.
yeah, so I sort of set this up as first, obviously, the stuff that what we liked, what was improved from previous entries, what we were satisfied with. Um, do you have do
Okay,
you have anything?
so I guess I'll start off with improvements from previous entries. Having gameplay actually reflect what's going on in the story. Like you have to lose to Urizen to continue forward. I thought that was like fucking amazing. It was always
Mm,
so disjointing in the other games when you technically lose but you win the boss fight every time. I hate that shit in
yeah,
games, so
I
that was really nice.
it bothered me so much in three, especially even when you were playing on the higher difficulties, because I know that story doesn't make too much of a difference, but you understand that the fundamental there's two-sided coin to that to my feelings on that in regards to DMC. And that story after the first like playthrough doesn't seem to make too much of a difference, but when you go back and play DMD and you see the sheer amount of effort and time and like practice a person has to get in to do well on those difficulties, and then like you get to the top of Timonagru and you beat Virgil and then you lose to him in cutscene. I mean,
It's like this is some
it's
fucking bullshit.
it can be like very like I'm gonna crush you and I can't wait to beat you at mission 13 esque feeling, like very very motivating, but it can also be like very demoralizing. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no.
it's nice to have that consistency when you just like, oh, I'm not expected to win against Yurzen. This is a
Thanks,
different
game.
feeling. Also because it's not as if like the challenge goes out the window, because you do have mission 8 where you're not expected to win against him in the second portion in the standing Yurzen, but you can, and you
Yeah,
get rewarded if you do.
yeah. You can beat Urizen at any point, but narratively you're supposed to lose, and in order to get there, you have to lose, which I thought was really
And you
nice.
even get a different cutscene too, which is kind of cool.
I don't think I've ever seen the
Um,
cutscene of Urizen dying. Actually, I've never beaten Urizen, and
it, it's just him falling to the ground, and then I think it's like peace is declared or something.
world peace was won because
Very
Virgil's
arbitrary.
dead.
Yup. No, V just kills over in a heart attack. um, yeah. So if we're talking, well, previous improvements, it's hard for me to talk about like what I like, because that does sort of go over quality of life improvements, which is its own section. But I guess without like going into something like that, I want to say that like a lot of the level design to me got a lot better. Oh wait, this is the story narrative.
I'll say,
As
man,
far
better keep it in your pants.
as far as story, well,
As far as story, okay, properly setting up an antagonist, DMC has had a big trouble with this one. One and three were fine, two and four were not.
oh, giving Virgil some introspection for once. Jesus Christ! Like, why did it take so long? Like three is a gold pot of like its own like character analysis into like Lady and Dante. And it is in a way to Virgil, but only as he's presented as an antagonist. We don't have him as a full character. He doesn't have an arc yet. And 5 is probably one of the only games that gives him like a more meaningful glance, I would say, into who he is as a person. And I think one that we should have gotten much earlier.
I do agree that you do get obviously a more like meaningful glance obviously in the Virgil's character. Whether or not we should have gotten it earlier though is really kind of up in the air because in 3, well, his goal wasn't inherently wrong in
Well,
3.
no, I don't mean 3 and 4. I mean like, if the reboot didn't happen, like I just mean like after 4 came out, like all right, give me Virgil, you know.
Yeah, no, I feel you there. Especially since no Virgil for all this time. Bullshit.
Yeah,
Regarding that story narrative, so narratively, I do have to say, the overall story is better than most in DMC and some video games in general. But the way they told it, breaking it apart, I feel like was not the right decision. I understand that it gave the most impact, but on further playthrough, it's kind of like why would you bundle this up?
as far as story though, it just feels it has some, like we're just talking about the positives now. So I feel that it worked for what it was like trying to do. That splitting up into 3 different people was very, it had a lot of meaning because context was given in pretty much every circumstance, right? It wasn't just like, oh, we're going to kill this demon. V makes it clear at the beginning of the game, oh, we're at least going to take out the Clypoth roots. And V has like his own journey that he goes to take out his own Clypoth root with what's it called? Nihog. And he makes it clear in the context, well, not context clues, just blatant statements in his game, as well as Nero mandatory dialogue. They both make it clear that they have to cut down the Clive, and then they both sort of make their way back to each other, which does, it's not a really padding. It's just like, it's a pretty linear progression of the game, and it doesn't get abrupt. It doesn't get like abruptly changed or bridged by anything. It feels very very consistent. It just starts to, like, narratively, it starts to take a little bit of a jump by mission 10 because there's so many flashbacks happening at this point with Dante being found alive after the fact. And he's like, wait, we're going back to mission 10. We're going back to this, which is its own little spiel. It works for the like, again, it works as far as like from event to event, sequence to sequence. It makes canonical sense, but it's not necessarily a change I would have preferred, as opposed to the way that most of the games were done, and just starting at one starting point and moving to the end.
Yeah.
Mm.
Regarding narrative, so main focus of the story surrounded the Clyfod tree, brand new item introduced into the series, along with the tree that was basically just straight up told, yeah, this created all life. I will say I did like the Clyfod tree. I did like the Clyfod tree as a whole. I wasn't too high on the fruit, but I did like the inclusion of the sort of the tree. I think the tree was a really nice inclusion to the narrative.
I did like the what's it gonna I did like how the what's it called? They made it clear in like the demon invasion that these demons were going to be stronger than they'd ever seen before. So the risks, they actually made it feel like the risks were higher than they'd ever been before. They weren't just saying like Morrison coming out with the obligatory, yeah, you've never had this much trouble. Like, I just thought, oh, that's a throwaway line. It's not. It's not. You actually legitimately feel like you're getting like kicked to the curb, both in the gameplay and in the story. And I think
Yeah,
they did a good job of capturing that.
that was a good intro. I remember the first time seeing that on the trailer. That was really good.
And it's not bad when you see it. You're just like, I don't really doubt that. I've played DMC 3 and 1. It can't get any worse. And then you,
And then in Rebellion, just like yeets.
yeah, the first cutscene, they just let you know how terrible you are. And it's been It's been a really long time since we had something like we haven't had that since 2005 with DMC3. Because even in DMC1, like Dante doesn't have like a clear loss until he gets to Mundus. Because like even Nello Angelo, who like sort of like slams him up against the wall, has to at least take the entire fight to do that. Because Dante's beating him and then he just beats him in close quarters. So it's like, it's really weird to have that experience where at the very beginning of the game you just get your shit kicked in. And
Yeah.
it's like, wow, this is a new feeling.
Wow, I wasn't used to this on normal difficulty.
Is it easy mode already? Yeah.
um, Let me think here regarding the story. Uh, Virgil coming back obviously was, in my personal opinion, well, actually, I don't want to go too far into like characters, but Virgil coming back was a good choice narratively.
I was very satisfied with him coming back. I gotta say, like, and the Suna was like, we'll see if this exceeds your expectations. We'll talk about expectations later, but that was one thing I wanted. I wanted him to come back, in a proper manner, and I don't know if I would say that splitting V and like Urizen was the thing that I would have done as far as like the plot and the way that they handled that, but the fact that he comes back as his self with his human and his demon souls and bodies like combining and fusing to recreate himself perfectly, so that there's no more corruption, no more massive PTSD, there's no like stupid weird conditions involving his like existence. It's completely fixed. It's fine now. It's like, all right, I can take issues with him showing up in 5, but like, we'll get to that. Like, just his resolution at the end is very satisfying.
Yeah, it must have been
It
so
is.
easy to get over his PTSD when he could like physically manifest the fucking trauma and just have Dante kill
Well,
it.
the fusion dance is a powerful technique. So,
That was actually one of the best, one of the better parts of the game, I think. After you beat the fucking summons and how they're like, and we are the end of Virgil's nightmares. Fucking
oh
love it.
yeah, that was something that I found to be a little daunting because it made me wonder whether or not the summons like genuinely cared about him, and the reason they kill themselves is because they don't want Virgil to suffer anymore.
I mean,
Um,
that's what I took from it. That's what most of the community seemed to take from it. I remember because I remember on the Reddit after the first couple of weeks when the game came out, they were like, "Did V summons actually care for Virgil or not?" And a lot of people were there like, "Yeah, I mean, made it pretty clear in the game. You know, they literally died so he
yeah,
wouldn't have nightmares anymore." Best of
yeah.
friends.
I gotta say that the resolution of the story, I enjoyed that as well. Just like the ending with Dante and Virgil fighting, actually working out their differences for once with nothing else getting in their way.
Ignores
That's
Nero.
yeah. Well, and then like Nero having a little clarity of mind, knowing that his family is at least alive. Granted, I think he seems to be under the impression that they're trapped down there, but I'm pretty sure that's gonna be like by next game or DLC, whatever you prefer, um, or special edition, whatever. Nero's gonna figure out. Wait a minute, they have Yamato. Damn it,
Now they're gonna
they're stuck
come
on.
back.
They're not gonna now. Now I know they're not gonna come back because they can leave anytime they want, and they still haven't returned.
I just want my father back. I was gonna say, yeah, no, the final fight between Dante and Virgil felt great. The cutscene building up to it. I will say that Virgil's initial resurrection was nice. The cutscene immediately following it though, with Dante's reaction, and then the famous "Get out of my way, Nero" when he's already halfway across the planet. That was
Yeah,
funny, but I never really understood why they made that choice. But we can get a bit further in negatives later.
yeah. So I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about story and narrative without talking about characters and lore. Do you just want to put on to the negatives about story and narrative?
I think I'll give a few more positives real quickly regarding
All
story
right.
and narrative. Cutscenes were fucking really well done this time around.
Oh yes, cutscenes were gorgeous in the Ori engine.
Music, cinematography. The only cutscene I have a problem with is Urizen's cutscene before eating the fruit because his armor looks gross in that cutscene. But I think that's just like a lighting issue.
Also, the way he's like eating the Clyphot looks a little weird, but like,
Virgil's the kind of guy who eats a fucking apple whole.
I think facial expressions were done like not just in the RE, like the way that they had their like the poses, because they still had to do like motion capture, right, for a lot of the characters.
Yeah.
Granted, some of the characters who were doing the models they weren't doing the motion capture, it was someone else, but they still had to make the forms for those cutscenes. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of the angles that they chose and like the special expressions that they did are some of the most satisfying things to look at going through that game, and some of the more satisfying things in the series. Like Virgil's smile when he gets up after Nero tells him just like, I'm putting a stop to the sibling rivalry. He's like like that's just such a satisfying like moment to see him be like, yes, you came all this way just for that. Because he's like, part of him is like, you can feel like part of him like narratively wise is like the antagonist wants to keep fighting, but like Nero's giving him a compelling reason to stop, and it's like, we
I'm
have
your
reached the final.
son. Please stop fighting, Dad.
Yeah. I just think like without, even with the dialogue, it means nothing without like the way that those expressions are done. They just
Yeah.
look so well
You
in
also have
the
the little nods there, like little touches, like when Virgil nods when Nero's like, "You're not gonna kill each other. I'm not gonna let you." Like you see Nero nod in approval almost. So
well, no, it's Virgil.
right, Virgil and approval, right?
Yeah,
But no, yeah, no. So you get a lot of scenes like those, and it's just really fucking.
it's pretty subtle. Like I didn't catch it my first time, but like seeing it, it's like, oh, Virgil's like, oh, okay,
Oh,
someone's there for me. That's kind of cool.
this is a new
Um,
feeling.
Nero's expression in regards to like, well, I don't think like the scene with Dante telling Nero Virgil was his father, like Dante's facial expressions were done that well. I think they could have, like, turning around was done really well. Just like what his mouth looks like when he's screaming, I don't think is too great, but like Nero's expression though, and like the scene in the van afterwards, perfect. Um,
Yeah, a lot, like almost all the cutscenes were really well done. It's very minute details that kind of cause issues. Let me think. Regarding story and narrative, I guess line delivery falls under there. Line delivery was really well done.
line delivery was.
Not all lines, but the majority were well done. For the
Oh,
main cast of
V's
characters.
lines. Let's be clear. V's lines were some of the best. When he shows up to fight Cavaliers, like, I know what you are. Don't worry. I'll be gentle.
Yeah, no. V's voice actor was on point throughout. He felt like he sounded like he was having a lot of
Brian
fun.
Hanford is a champ. Props to him.
Brian Hemford, that's what his name is.
Yes.
Yeah, no. V's voice actor blew it out of the park. I think. I think he was the best voice actor out of the entire lot. Dan, personally, I would from the actors I know, I would put that or I guess Brian first because V was really well done, and
Well,
then I'd
yeah,
put freaking what's I can't remember his name right now. Dan Southward second because Urizen's line delivery was really well done too, and so was obviously Virgil's.
I just can't put Dan at the highest because it's like he doesn't get too many lines, even as yours, because he's only there to be like the main antagonist, and he only shows up in the boss fights. So since they have a completely different person voicing what is Virgil, there's not really going to be too much spotlight on Southward's performance. I do think Ruben also does a really good job of Dante because he portrays that Dante that's like really, you know, a lot older.
Yeah.
He's very set in his ways, and
Would you say
that
he's a boomer mangler?
yeah, he's very set in his ways, and I think they did a good job of presenting that because in 4 we didn't really get that because he was only like 38 or so, and I guess age aside, he's just kind of messing around the entire game in 4. He doesn't care. He's not emotionally involved in the job. He doesn't really care that much about work ethic. Like I'm only at like halfway through. Does he realize I might have some stake in this, but I'll let Nero handle it. And then he's like, okay, never mind. Time to get serious,
All
but
right,
take
yep.
my sweet time.
Time to fucking start getting fucking ready.
I don't know. Also, Johnny Young Bosch did a great job with Nero's lines. I do like a lot of his earlier lines in the beginning of the game, like when he's getting angry that Dante calls him dead weight. It's like he feels really desperate in his voice because he's just like so insecure.
Don't call me dead weight.
I know everyone memes that scene, but you have to understand that is very. It's very good to capture that kind of like dread that Nero's feeling.
No, like I understand narratively why it's there. It's just kind of ridiculous that it stays with him for the entirety of the fucking game.
Yeah.
Because even later on, when he's there talking with Dante, you listen, dead weight. The fuck is this guy
Also,
on about?
Nero's lines, like the motion capture done in his scenes is really good as well. But like him making fun of Goliath, talking with crew cuts, his interactions with Nico, are hilarious in their own right. But some people don't like Nico as much, but like she does
Eh.
have that brother sister vibe to like Nero that I approve of.
For me, it was kind of like wasn't exactly the strongest thing in the game, but it wasn't the worst thing. It wasn't as worse. It wasn't as
I
bad as I
mean,
think it was.
we went from having like characters on the side, like no characters on the side, to finally having like a character that like equips you because we always just relied on the divinity statues. So I think that's
What you
why
don't
the
like the
adjustment was a little bit harder.
don't like the divinity statue all of a sudden, huh?
Yeah,
Divinity
well,
statue is not good enough for you, Mingler?
oh, I mean, Nico has a divinity statue in her van if that's what you wanted. Um, so yeah, just story and narrative, like it doesn't have too much to talk about as far as like like positives, because the things that were glaring about it were usually the negatives. Because like the DMC stories and narratives as far are pretty simple. They're nuanced, but they're also just very simple. So even the really good things are there's just we're not going to spend too much time talking on them. Like
Yeah, because ultimately, like when you have an overall good product, you what really sticks out are the
yeah,
negatives.
the negatives, and not for reasons that it's like the product is bad. It's just generally speaking, if you're so close to being the best version of yourself, everything that you do wrong is going to stick out like a sore thumb,
Mm-hmm.
much more than it perhaps would normally. So if you're fine with that, I mean, there's just perhaps some things I might have missed, but you know,
Yeah.
now the time to get onto the negatives.
Yeah,
Um,
negatives. I think right off the bat, fucking MacGuffins for days. I don't think this is really so much a problem with DMC5, but just in general, MacGuffins for days have just been a thing. Fruit
the
comes out of fucking
Clyfoth, you
nowhere.
mean?
Well, no, again, I'm fine with the tree. I'm not fine with the fruit. Like, if the fruit was separate from the rest of the DMC5, I'd be fine. Like, okay, so new tree comes out, has a fruit that gives you power. No, this fruit actually gave Moon this power. You fucking what?
Yeah, that didn't make sense to me. Like for a moment, I sort of jumped over it, but the moment I heard it, I was like, okay, that's an explanation for Mundus. But wait a minute, Argosax didn't have the fruit. Like,
Yeah, so that would mean then that Moon just started off as a weak fucking demon. Argosax by himself raised that power on his
well,
own.
that wasn't too much of an issue. It was just that there were other demon kings that didn't have the fruit, because in the instruction manual for one, it actually confirms that like overnight, Moon just becomes like the emperor of the demon world. So I'm assuming they're like trying to tie back to that. But the problem with that is that again, he becomes the emperor, and then it's like, wait a minute, Argosax over here doesn't need the fruit. What? Like, this just seems pretty inconsistent for me. I don't know about you.
Well, for me, it kind of like ruined Mundus. I mean, it made Argosax better, so I like that. But it kind of ruined Mundus because you always kind of were just under the impression Mundus was just a powerful demon to begin with. But now that we know the fruit was what happened, all the other demon kings are better than Mundus by default because they had the power by themselves.
Ugh, at least until it gets retconned again.
I would
Also, what I didn't. Do you have anything else?
Well, I was gonna say I would have been fine with it, but then they just go on to confirm that Mundus and Argosax fought each other at the same time for the demon world, and they were like basically evenly matched. So it's like, oh, you couldn't even just say like, oh, he got stronger later. No, they were as powerful at the exact same fucking time. Okay.
Also for story and narrative, I don't like one thing that I said that could have fixed a ton of issues in 5 is the conversation that V has with Trish. That doesn't need to happen.
I didn't like it.
That could have happened later on if Virgil had come back a couple missions sooner. um, I just think like that kind of kills a little bit of the pacing. It does give us explanation and context, but it sacrifices like a proper reveal. I mean, granted, we didn't know for sure if he was going to be able to, but like it's very clear that his intentions are to return.
The second fucking Virgil was fucking like shown, we knew he was gonna come back, or we knew he was gonna come back. I feel like there would be no way it's gonna let that one fucking slide.
It also sort of like hurts it that the reveal trailers had been showing this, but then again, you can thank the person who leaked all this. May they like be sued out of all of their money.
Wait, did they get sued?
I don't know. I said may they be sued out of all their money.
Well, okay, because I remember going through all the leaks because the main leak that kind of spoiled Virgil completely was some guy got a hold of the game early, and he shared a picture of a guy holding a katana versus Dante, but he like wiped off the face with a red marker, like we couldn't tell who the fuck it was. He's all like, "Here's proof I have the game, but I'm not going to show you the face for whatever fucking reason." I'm just like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And then, like, 2 days before, I have this video taken down, but 2 days before, some guy in South America leaked the final Virgil fight with Nero. Oh, man, that was fucking amazing watching that for the first time.
I didn't watch any of those leaks. I only watched the trailers, but there were still moments that didn't get ruined for me that I did like. But that V cutscene destroys a shitload of momentum in the story. Regarding Virgil.
Yeah.
And the rest of the pacing is, again, you can have your complaints about that. That's fine.
So you have the big old... Oh, wait, hang on. Actually, no. Mission 13. I fucking hate Mission 13 just in general because Mission 13, it's in the wrong place. Dante, Virgil, and Nero, or Dante V and Nero go their separate ways and then immediately end up in the same fucking location. Only to have a cutscene where they fall down in the same spot and then get separated into 3 different areas like Clifton Tree. Who the fuck edited this game's levels, for fuck's sake?
Like, I'd be fine if they left and then they both show up in the same room, right? And then you have like the co-op mission and then they get separated. The fact that they go 3 separate ways and then end up in the same room is stupid. And then they fall out of the same room and end up in a different room. It's like, what? Yes. Like, you did what you wanted to do the second time and not what you wanted to do the first time.
Yeah, so for me personally, I would have changed the order a bit there. My personal opinion. No boss rush mission though.
Yeah, V's thing that's not a proper boss rush. Even 4 is probably better.
I think V's mission, after you beat it the first time, should have let you play as anybody, just so you could like have your pseudo boss rush. I know Bloody Palace came out, but Bloody Palace came out a month later.
Yeah. Right. Also, Bloody Palace doesn't even give you authentic boss rush. It just gives you like, it's just Virgil. It's just 3 different versions of Virgil, and then Virgil again.
But you can like kind of choose like what missions you want to play.
I mean, I guess if you wanted to do like an artificial boss rush, you can do that because you can just go play Goliath, then you can play Artemis, then you can play Cavalier, then you can play
Rise.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else regarding story and narrative? Oh, well, no, I feel like this will go under characters, but I'll say it again. I've been saying this for a while. Lady and Trish, they need to be in the game.
Yeah, as far as like narratively wise, they don't.
I would have honestly rather have had Patty be in the game.
So they contribute a couple things. They do.
They contribute one scene.
I should have mentioned like their likeness under Nero's the scene that like just having them there like the thing about those scenes. Think about some of these scenes like the Trish scene with V and then the lady scene with Nero in the van. Those have their own bad sides because it's like those characters don't have too much of inclusion outside of those scenes, but in those scenes they do really well, and we wouldn't have them if those characters didn't exist in this game. But overall, I just think that it would have been more useful to either A, give Lady some proper freaking weapons so that she would have been more relevant, or B, have Trish go on a warpath and start destroying a shitload of demons. Like, something. Right?
Just like anything other than just being like there and then gone the next second later.
I don't mind them being bosses, and again, like I said, Lady being host of Artemis defending the Clyfoth, but there could have been more. I mean, she even gets a new rocket launcher, for goodness sake, and she doesn't get to use it.
Nope.
Because Dante just takes it and leaves.
Just takes it and pawns it off.
Doesn't even bring it back. What a douche.
I'm sure it'll be broken next time he comes back.
Yeah, I know. Mark, we'll get the Mark III.
Okay, so anything else regarding story and narrative specifically? I mean, we're already basically on characters at this point.
Entry. What got worse with this entry as well?
What got worse?
Yeah, what we didn't like, what got worse, what we were unsatisfied, etc.
Okay, well, let me think. What got worse with this entry regarding story and narrative? I can't really say anything because for the most part, DMC 3 was the best story overall of the other DMC games, and 5 is the closest to 3. I think we just got into a middle ground here. Maybe make the antagonist a little more compelling. Urizen was fine, but Urizen only showed up for 3 cutscenes and that was it.
Yeah, there wasn't enough time to properly see. I would say one of the things I was really unsatisfied was that there wasn't enough time. I still think Virgil. I'll argue this with anyone, and I will win. I still think Virgil learns from his experiences as V considerably, and that it does change him. It's just we don't get enough time to see that change in a proper manner because there are a lot of people that need to have it explicitly explained to them, even though, to literally shoved through their heads, even though Virgil is a character that is very, very nuanced and keeps to himself and is also an introvert. The complete opposite of what you're getting in terms of a direct explanation. V is the only reason you manage to get anything at all, because he has most of Virgil's insecurities removed so that he feels more comfortable socially. Damn, I should have mentioned that under something I like. Well, I guess that's characters. But I'm saying, the way that they handled that, or as the pacing of the game was...
I should probably mention this now. Bosses was actually something that went backwards in story and narrative. Bosses, regarding the story and narrative, they went down hard.
How so?
Well, for starters, we have the fucking fact that you have random fucking bosses who have literally nothing... narratively to contribute to the story.
Yeah, they don't tie anything. They're just
some are fine, and then some are Goliath.
Malphus was wasted. I'll say that. Malphus had the potential to be so much better, and she just shows up and just gets headshot by Nero.
And then she has that weird fucking scene in Mission 13 where she just shows up out of fucking nowhere. Or no, it's 14 where she just fucking mind induces V.
Yeah, she sends V there and it's just this dimension is healing my body, and then there's no mention of it after the fact, and she's sort of just kind of existing at the end of it.
What would have been cool is if during her, and I know this is the wrong section, but if in her boss fight, if she sent Nero into that dimension and would attack you via that, I think that would have been really cool.
Or if she had sent Nero and V into a dimension to fight each other. And maybe there had been some mention. Maybe she'd been tied in with Mundus, and maybe there had been some role with her torturing Nello Angelo or something. So some reasoning for her being there, or some connection to the rest of the characters, instead of just being oh, this is this demon that we have that can portal jump, that commands Cavalier and all the other people who guard the Clyfoth, but she's probably still second to King Cerberus, and it's oh, okay. Who cares? Even the generals had more of a significance in 1 because they were at least explicitly under Mundus's command, whereas all the other ones, it kind of just seems like they just follow Urizen out of fear of being eliminated.
Well, essentially King Cerberus, he seems pretty loyal. He seems like he's just a dog.
Other than Cerberus, who is a literal dog,
What's wrong with him being a dog, mangler?
I'm saying that's an explanation that might be a good explanation for why he's very loyal. Because puppies are loyal.
I'll say you of all people should know how good a dog is, Mangler. I'm disappointed in you.
Oh my goodness. So
Alright.
yeah, I was unsatisfied with that. As far as, let's see, story. Um, I guess some of this goes under
I think at this point we can move on
characters.
to characters, and I think with this one we can move on to characters and lore. Because regarding story, there's not really too much else to say without going into characters specifically.
Yeah. So okay, same criteria as above. Things we liked, what was improved from previous entries, what we were satisfied. We need to talk about one. Nero. Okay, that boy got an actual character. Like, finally, instead of screaming Kyrie every other scene. I get it. There's a reason narratively for why he does it in 4, but you don't provide the context isn't provided for this.
Mangler clearly has never been
Except
to
in
high
like
school. That's actually how normal high schoolers act. They just scream
except in
Kyrie.
like limited scenes, and like you need director statements to clarify. You also need like the Deadly Fortune novel, considering half of it is basically unreadable. That's not a reasonable thing for a person who is like a casual fan of the series to do. I mean, yeah, for someone like me, I better get to it.
For someone like me, I mean that's just par for the course. But for someone like you, peasant,
Yeah, no, for someone like you, you're not gonna handle enough of that. But the five actually gives him context to a lot of like the problems and the reasons why he's very insecure about protecting things in his life, and 5 gives him like a literal, like physical, tangible goal of revenge in the form of like Urizen, and he gets to come to grips with whether or not he wants to do that, as well as saving the rest of his family. And I think that scene, regardless of what you feel about Dante, because this section also includes characters. It includes characters, but it also includes lore. So we will be discussing retcons. Regardless of what you think of the retcons, Insuno made it very clear that this game, its ending was going to be wrapped around Nero being the bridge between like Dante and Virgil. He did that perfectly. Regardless of the circumstances up to it, the way he did it was perfect.
yeah,
I
I still
don't
got
think.
people telling me fucking Nero's the strongest character in the game. By the way, so I wouldn't say too perfect.
Yeah. Well, as far as no, I'm saying as far as like how, like, well, narrative wise, character wise, how consistent it is, how useful it is for Nero to be there for himself as well as for the rest of the audience. I don't know if it could have been done any better on
Yeah.
Nero's part. Dante and Virgil is a little different, but
Okay, so let's go over Dante.
what you liked?
Well, I mean, for the most part, I like Dante as a general character. Not my favorite not my favorite clearly, but I like the fact that he kind of went back to. Actually, no, I didn't like that. I like his charisma. He still had a lot of charisma. He was still a fun character, but he had good lines. But I can't really say too much positive about like. I just like Dante, like because Dante was Dante. Unfortunately for me, it was a regression of the character a little bit because we went from like all these other games and now we're back to DMC3 Dante.
Well, I don't think we rest to Dante. Like I was satisfied with his performance in 5 because again, he's being represented as a person that's very set in his ways. He's much older. He's convinced that everything he's done at this point is um, pretty correct. You know, like he's never had anyone who could prove him wrong in strength outside of Virgil and Mundus, and he knew Mundus was wrong for all of his intents and purposes, and he just presumed Virgil followed under the same circumstances. So when he has these conflicts with Virgil, I don't really have a problem with him being that irrational because he's had so much time to prove everyone else wrong about the idea that like he's anything but the good guy with the correct what's it called, with the correct like idea about how
Correct
demons
philosophy.
should, yeah, their philosophy, like you should protect something that matters. he has very good reasons for wanting to believe that. I believe he's wrong, but like, you can't convince me that his character shouldn't believe that. He has every right to do so because he's proven it by right of like conquest, and that's how the DMC world operates. Whoever has the most power gets to decide what happens in their respective worlds. So I think that's consistent with him, which is why it's the most satisfying when he gets the shit kicked out of him by Nero at the end of the game, because he's like, wait, what?
This isn't right.
No, you're dead weight. Wait, I called you dead weight at the beginning. Remember, I just want to take a nap.
It's like, what the fuck are you on about, Nero?
There's not much to talk about in Lady and Trish.
I will say I didn't like the fact that Lady now has a strong regret for killing her father. Like, you would think she got over that, but apparently she didn't. Because, yeah, like, she was emotionally turmoiled in 3, and I've already said this on stream, and maybe we'll discuss this, but I'll just say that personally, when she's like, killing your father, that's something you'll never get over. Bitch, do you remember what your dad did?
I mean, again, it's still killing your father.
Yeah, after he killed your mother. Dude, I'm gonna be honest here, that seems like a pretty fair game to go fucking tell.
It destroyed her. We're not gonna have a debate over this right now.
Weakness!
So, I guess I'm gonna save like Virgil and V for the end, because the big ones. Next one is Nico. So what do you... I like Nico.
No. Well, okay.
I enjoy
let me rephrase that. I don't hate Nico, but... And I think it's because I play Final Fantasy 15. When you've seen it done better and less less, I guess, imposing in a different game, the same character trope, it's really hard to sit there and say like, oh yeah, I really like Nico.
Well, I've never had that, so my perspective's different.
Yeah. So like, at just a casual look at it, I can understand why, like, you know, it'd be fine. I don't understand why people hate Nico so much. I don't think she was that bad of a character.
I think she looks like she's supposed to be annoying, but then like, it's like, nah.
A lot of her lines are pretty annoying for someone of her, like, of what she's supposed to represent. I understand being like chill and easygoing and being like sassy, but then she has just like these really fucking weird lines.
The way I see it, she's her father's daughter, and Agnes was annoying as fuck.
Agnes was never that annoying.
Yes, he was annoying when he needed to be.
Look, mangler, some people just have a fucking stutter. You're gonna have to accept that.
Here's the thing. Agnes was a genius, so we excused him. Nico is a genius of a different kind. She doesn't specialize in the same kinds of things that Agnes does, which is just, I guess, forms of like science, discovering like and researching demons. She's just kind of building your breakers. Like her, like I think if her involvement in the game was a little bit more, like if she was building weapons, like I said, for Lady, Trish, for like Dante and everybody, if she was doing that off the cuff for literally everybody, I think she'd get respected a lot more.
Well,
because like there needs to be some ground for her being there. Plus, 4 is kind of like half a game. So when people see someone like Agnes just being included with his wonderful stutters, he just seems really iconic. Because it's just like, it's something super specific to him, and he just owns it. In the same way that like Nico, like I think she owns the idea that she has a passion for her work of art, as she calls it. Like that's just her spiel. That's just her spiel. Like I don't think I think she does it really well. Like her passion for it is pretty consistent.
I mean, no,
and I enjoy that.
Like, yeah, there's passion there, but well, for starters, I guess if you didn't read before the Nightmare, all of her stuff is based off her father's notes, like the Dr. Faust.
True.
Which,
yeah.
I'd be fine with her being just like the engineer character, but then she made Dr. Faust too. And I'm like, how the fuck do you make that one? There's no gears in that one. There's no machines on that hat.
This is positive section. Remember, maybe I should have done negatives first.
Well, I mean, when it comes to Nico, the positives here are she's unique in DMC. There's no doubt in that. There's no doubt. I don't think anyone can say otherwise. She's a very unique character, unique addition.
She's never been done before. That's the thing.
Not in
Like
DMC.
we don't have a frame of
Yeah.
reference in
So
DMC.
in DMC, she's completely unique. Her backstory is really nice, but unfortunately, you're not going to get it if you just play the fucking game. You'd have to go read the novel. I feel like if her backstory was introduced in the game, it'd be a lot better.
We have a. She also has some funny lines with Nero where it's just like it's okay to cry over loss.
Her interactions are nice. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say she doesn't. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say like all her moments are bad. She does have good chemistry with some of the characters. Um, Let me think. What else?
Gonna be honest, her and Lady, that's a ship that I've seen with people, and to be honest, I'm not against it. I just because it gives Lady something to do.
Wow, Mangler, way to relegate a character to a relationship.
Well,
Hot
I mean, she doesn't
damn.
have much she's doing. Like, again,
Fuck,
but like that would have
Mangler.
made a lot more sense if like she'd given her like, hey, here's 2 rocket launchers. Then I would have been like, all right,
You ever see the H3 section where he's talking about how
no,
women should be dominated? That's basically what you said.
no, no.
Okay.
I'm saying like I've seen people ship them, and it
No,
makes sense to
no,
me as
yeah, yeah.
far as like
I've seen them ship them too because, well, I guess Nico isn't directly confirmed to be of like that sexual orientation, but I guess she's
oh
like
no, you
both
saw
ways.
the way she was like,
No, 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 no.
see.
I get what you're saying. Like, no, like they leaned in that direction. They just never fully confirmed it. I,
Yeah, Nico's like, I don't wanna, but I
you
kind of
know,
wanna.
I'm not exactly looking in your direction, but if you were naked in my bed, I mean, well, things are just gonna
If you
happen.
weren't naked and covered in blue goop, I mean, I might just be
I mean,
looking
like,
at
who knows what could
you.
happen.
So,
Okay, yeah. So regarding negatives, again, people find her an annoying character. I don't think her voice is that bad. I know some people say her voice is bad. I think it's really just some of the lines she gets just doesn't help her case.
yeah. Um. Well, is that all for Nico? Because I was gonna go to like, what's it called? Should we just since we're going over V, I feel like we should go over yours and as well, like both of them.
We can go over those characters separately. Are we
Mm.
going to talk at all about Trish, or are we just going to like ignore her like the way DMC5 ignored her from the
I'm
CD?
not. I'm not going over Trish and Lady because they don't have too much of an inclusion. Like all I can talk about is like one scene for them, and it'd be more important to talk about those scenes. And I mentioned their significance in them already. They don't really have a character in this game, and their arcs are already finished, and they don't have any like purpose in being here outside of those scenes and their respective roles guarding the Clive-Off.
Get out of
Like
here.
so. Let's go on to V and Urizen.
Okay, so I guess let's start off with Urizen since he has
Yeah,
the.
get him out of the way first. What I liked,
Fantastic. Great. All across the board. 100%.
an antagonist that has a really good voice, looks really disturbing, and beats the shit out of the main who's way too confident. For good reason, but like it's nice to watch Dante get knocked down a peg. And Urizen exists not just to do that, but like to be the most powerful person there is. It's just that happens to be one of the perks of being the most powerful. You get to kick the crap out of the second most powerful person and let them know who's boss. I like the idea of Urizen basically having amnesia. That kind of that adds another layer to him because it means that he doesn't have the significance or attachment to any of the other characters. He gets to do things as an antagonist who like would normally have connections to one that we know, being Virgil, and he gets to do whatever he wants. He doesn't have any restrictions. And it's very symbolic of like the way that like he is just purely a demon and there's no humanity involved whatsoever. I find it very a very good representation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree on that one. Urizen, for me, I don't think there was anything really wrong with Urizen as a whole. I think everything was fine all across the board. He didn't do too many stupid things. He actively did go after the heroes and try to kill them. The only one he didn't was Dante, but he assumed Dante was dead at that point. So
Yeah, he doesn't. The reasons why he doesn't pursue Dante are not relegated to stupidity. They're just he's in a position where he has no reason to believe Dante's a threat to him because Dante doesn't present a threat to him. So he just assumes he's dead when he hits him because he's like, yeah, I hit him pretty hard. And he doesn't sense him because the Clifoth gives him blood, just like him. And the Sparta sword happens to be there, so it also cloaks his sense. So there's good reasons for why Urizen doesn't do this. There's not a lot of examples of plot-induced stupidity for Urizen because of the outline that his character is given. It's very consistent, and I like it.
I think the only potential bad thing is when Nero is when like he's too like arrogant and Nero just hits him and it's like, bitch, you're gonna make me stand up? You really gonna make me stand up right now?
I think what I also enjoy is that he's not like, I mean, he is arrogant in his own right, but like in a practical sense, like when he realizes Dante is a problem, he just retreats. He's like, no, I'm not gonna like wait this out.
Urizen's like, okay, fruit's about to be up, and I see I'm losing. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here.
I'll come back when I'm stronger. And
then I'm gonna kick your ass. What he does. Yeah, no.
But you can't like blame him for at least retreating, making a tactical decision, and then attempting to get stronger, and then almost winning. So like, it wasn't completely short-sighted. If he had just been a little bit stronger, he might have won.
Yeah, no. Urizen all across the board was. I think I think personally he's the one character you can't really complain about because everything he did was either reasonable, smart, or necessary. There wasn't really too many. The only thing you could probably get him on is like just his overconfidence. But I mean, when you're that powerful, what do you really say to that? That'd be like fucking Game Mad Emperor Palpatine for being confident and being able to zap people. He's the strongest thing alive. How the fuck was he supposed to know 2 lightsabers were gonna do him in?
Alright. Now, do you want to go on to V? Because I think I've said my piece about yours. Okay.
Yours and too good. Like didn't even take like 10 seconds.
V was done so fucking well. My God, like V is one of my favorite characters. But man, just having him come out like that first where he shows up with not because his first scenes I don't really consider the prologue to be his first scenes because you just kind of see him there.
Yeah,
like his first scene for me is a mission 2 after Goliath gets defeated, and he just comes out. This dude with a fucking cane just comes walking around the corner quoting William Blake, and you're like, what are you? What?
Oh, word for this. It's going to be one of those people.
And then he steals you, and you're like, oh. Now,
I did appreciate we got to see, I should mention this too, I did appreciate getting to see demons die on screen for once. Most of the time they just turn the weapons or disappear before the cutscene starts.
Oh, yeah. I thought that might have bothered me a little, like, not getting a devil arm, but we got a breaker out. We got 2 weapons out of it, so I think I was okay. As far as just V's character, V is just Virgil with all the restrictions removed. So he just gets to be himself, which is a complete dork. And that's great because Virgil has always needed that. A lot of this is reflected pretty highly in his lines and just his gameplay. So I'm sort of going to mention that here, but like his taunts, all the quotes he says when he reads William Blake.
What, you mean the 2 fucking quotes?
Yes. I think he has like 3.
No, okay, so if you actually open the book, he has 2 quotes. Let me see if I can remember them. To hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. It's been so long since I played DMC5 because I haven't played it recently because, well, I haven't really needed to. That I can't remember the full quotes. But one's the eternity and the other one is an angel watched over me on the day of my birth holding... No. What the fuck?
I'm just saying it's not too relevant to mention like what they are. It's just he's very, very, very into something that he's had passion about. He's not. He doesn't let it go. It's his own thing. His performance is over the top, but it's never. It's all very controlled, and it's done. Nothing is wasted. It's still consistent with what Virgil does. Nothing he does is wasted or unnecessary. It's just in its own. No. It isn't. It isn't. Everything he does, everything he wants to do, isn't wasted. It may be unnecessary to other people, but it isn't to him.
That doesn't make it not necessary.
Well, again, some people might argue it's not necessary to raise the Temina group, but, you know.
Well, I mean, like, someone had to get that sword.
I'm saying some people might, so you could say the same thing for something like V, where he's just, you know, it's not necessary to read William Blake 5 times, but he's like, well...
Oh, I would disagree with that person.
I think you, I think you need to
shut the fuck up.
V's, I'm sort of going to put, like, V's summons in here as well, because they are literally, like, Virgil's representations of, like, his, what's it called?
You mean Griffin?
Yeah.
Well, so I know you're not talking about Nightmare, because Nightmare never fucking talks.
No. Nightmare's the talks, speak softly and carry a big stick kind of guy.
Speak never and carry the biggest fucking stick in the planet.
Griffin and V together is like a perfect combination. I like to think of that in some ways as like, well, I like to think of it just like Griffin as being like what Dante is on a sugar rush, talking to like Virgil without any of his social restrictions, and that's just their combination together. Like, it kind of made me wonder, like, what the possibility of them, like if they were communicating with each other, but with different circumstances applying. I mean, I know some people thought of Griffin as his own character, and I think he is. I just it made me wonder what it's like to have V have like a friend for once.
Oh,
have someone else.
Finally, I'm not lonely anymore.
And then Griffin's like, "Yeah, fuck yeah!" Like,
friendship is power.
Yeah. I mean, the summons were nice, mainly Griffin. Griffin, obviously, it's kind of one of the perks of being able to talk. You know?
Yeah, like being the only form of communication really helps sell your existence as the best.
V also gives like a ton of context for why Virgil feels the way that he does.
Because mom and daddy went there to save him.
The manga does give some context, but like I'm saying, as far as like the game still does a pretty good job of explaining like why he holds like such insecurity, and that's
why don't you love me, Mom?
That's the thing I think I cared a lot more about, even in the grand scheme of things, than like, you know, the relationship between Dante and Virgil, because I always knew that relationship was fucked. It's just like,
yeah, I'm not seeing a return for these two.
We never had context to like what Virgil's feelings were as far as like his relationships with other people, or just his relationships in general, like what he wants to feel. V is the first like confirmed example of what that would be or what that is.
Well, we do know he somehow got laid at some point.
Well, I'm just saying, like, this is the first version in which he talks about it. It's like having those scenes where he's like, I want to be protected and loved. You know, while he's dying.
Of course, again, the essential.
for the second time in like 2 months.
Can I just like stop dying every 5 seconds? That'd be great.
Yeah, so it's nice to, it's really, really nice to have that. Then we go on to, if you got anything else to add.
V and Griffin were fine. I think the only real issue here is he's vague, but he's not like unnecessarily vague. But I think like the only real issue would be like he's just a little vague at times. But no, honestly, everything regarding Virgil's two halves was fine.
Well, as far as him keeping everything to himself, because I know someone's gonna mention that.
Why didn't you give the fucking proper information?
Yeah, just look at TTR like our debunk response to that, and you'll see what I feel about like V having to tell literally everyone about his plan or any elements of it. He does a great job of being a shifty motherfucker, and that is his job. Like, is to not like let anyone know what's going on.
Give it away, V. Don't give it away. You don't want to die again.
And it's so like hilarious to see him just kind of like not fool them, but just like survive from scene to scene, where it's like, yeah, he just becomes increasingly more useful.
Don't kill me.
Also, when he becomes faced with like his own mortality, when he's like, oh, I'm dying again.
This needs to stop happening. This is like the 5th time now. I'm getting tired of this.
This needs to stop. Overall, solid character, 10 out of 10. So, we move on to Virgil. All right. Virgil doesn't really get any lines. He gets like a scene. He gets missions 18 up to 20. But I will say, for the time that he's included, he was still really good.
I don't think there was like really anything really bad regarding Virgil in this game, outside of the fact that like he did everything that happened. But I don't think there was anything inherently bad about Virgil's game when it comes to his character or anything.
Yeah, his line delivery, the way he's portrayed, his knowledge and understanding of anything. It's like, yeah, I mean, well, once we start talking about lore, which will be the next part after we finish talking about like what we didn't like about the characters, we'll get into that. But as far as just what he feels, I think he was done. Like, seeing him this way than what I had originally predicted for DMC5 is much preferable, because now he has the context that V can give him. He understands like what it's like to be human again, like completely human, and that experience is extremely valuable to him. Seeing him thank Nero, give him gratitude.
Yo, I realized I'm a dick.
I'm sorry. like, thank you. Watching him be legitimately concerned at the beginning of the fight with Nero, where he's like, "Please stop fighting. I don't want to kill my son." Like, the moment he realized, "Oh, I have one of those. Stop fighting me."
You know, she said it was a safe day. I mean, it's great to hear and all, but I'm just saying.
I just find that like really, really nice to see him be like, yeah, no, my family doesn't give a fuck about me. To like, I can't kill my family. I can't do this. It's DMC.
Nero, you're not Dante. Don't make me do this.
No. And then, well, I guess his interactions with Nero, even though they're short-lived, I think they're still like really nice. Just watching his cutscenes, talking to him.
Actually, I actually forgot to do a positive and negative. I think this goes in the narrative. In boss fight dialogue. Nice addition. I just hate that you can't listen to the dialogue outside the boss fight.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to listen to all of Urizen's lines, but no one has them online for the most part because they always miss a couple, and you can't just go. Can't just look it up.
I was just going to say a positive for. They passed the torch the correct way this time. I think they did it this time the way that they should have.
It's like this time it was good, guys. We got him.
We got him. Now, as far as, I guess that's, let's see, what I liked, what got worse with this entry. Oh, what got better? Did anything get better? Well, I think V was definitely a step up. What got better? I was satisfied with most of the presentation of these characters in the way that, like, from their starting point to their end point. I think the whole process was done really well. Outside of like Lady and Trish,
So then, are you asking like, well, wait, could you clarify what you're asking here?
Yeah. So is there anything that you think that got significantly better in this
Regarding
outside of the
characters or regarding
yeah
just
regarding characters? Because I mentioned like Nero
um
um
mm, for the
were the
most
main
part,
ones.
no, we still had good characters like we do in all the other games, or we had like decent characters we do in the other games. We still had characters, despite this being a complete fucking game. We still had characters who did not have anything regarding backstory and shit, so that was always nice. Um, no, I can't really think of anything else spectacularly improved. Maybe character interaction was better this time around. In 4, it felt kind of forced. In 3, it felt natural to a degree. But I think 5 was the first one where I actually thought, like, yeah, I could see this happening.
Mm, all right. So now we get on to the negatives.
Negatives for characters?
You know,
No,
all right.
subject.
Do you want to start? Because I need to start for an anchor.
I think so. All right, negatives for characters. I'm gonna go straight into Dante. Again, for me, just completely regressed. We have now that we confirmed the 2 is after fucking 4. Like you would think some level of maturity kicks in there, but he just feels like
I
full
mean
on.
before.
Yeah, 2 to 4 to 5, but no, because 2 started it, and then in 4 he was more mature, and then in 5 it feels like we just went back to DMC3 Dante. And especially depressed, upset the entire time. I'm alone, shit like that. Brother comes back, time to kill him.
Well,
Not even gonna try and talk to him like, hey.
significantly disagree because his depression ends at the end of the anime. He's just bored in 2. Like he's literally fucking bored out of his mind. In 4, he's not really mature. He's just completely capable of killing everyone in the city at any point in time. He just is again like just kind of like trying to see how things pan out because after the first, yeah, I might have a relative.
I mean, but 4 felt like your cool uncle, and 5 felt like that guy in this SNL sketch. You've seen the meme? Hello, fellow kids.
I get the uncle vibe feels different. I will say things that I don't think were done well as far as his character. Um, just I'm saying his hmm, his need to not include anyone as far as like helping him handle this because he thinks it's his own problem.
I mean,
I take issue with that. Like,
to be fair, a portion of that is due to the fact that no one else could do what he's about to do.
I understand, but like, well, actually, that's not entirely true because if Nero had taken the bringer, he could have just absorbed DT energy from Dante
Yes,
until he became
and
strong enough.
then he got disarmed.
Fuck. um. Well, I think it's worth mentioning that Dante just kind of feels the need to push literally everybody away in 5, just because he thinks Virgil's his own responsibility. And I think the way that he handles that is not as good as it could have been.
I mean,
Because
the fact that he doesn't tell Nero why he doesn't want him here inherently should have been done like pretty early on.
yeah, that should have been done before.
Like
Again, I said
before Virgil
that
comes back.
scene. I said that scene was done well, but only because it wasn't done earlier. Like it was not. It didn't. So we got to have the scene. Yes, we wouldn't have had this thing, but like narratively wise, that would have been more consistent with the characters.
The scene
If
was
you
not inherently ideal, is what I think we're trying to say here.
yeah, it's definitely good for what it was. Like now that we got it, okay, it actually is presented really well. In terms of like motion capture, presentation, like atmosphere, the characters and their like it's a scene that I could see happening in real life. Like if that circumstance ever happens, this is believable. It's just
Nero, your
that
dad's
scene didn't
taking
need to
over
happen.
Demon World.
It was completely unnecessary because they could have had the conversation earlier. And that part of that is Dante's fault. I mean, part of it is Nero's fault, but it's way more Dante's fault than Nero's fault
I don't know.
because
Nero never realized his
no
dad
no no no
was.
no 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 Nero was I'll put some blame on Nero, but like it's probably like 2080 because the dude grew up on like the sheltered town of like Fortuna. He's literally surrounded by a bunch of religious cultists, whereas Dante is a private investigator. Like, like what are you on about? Like, he ain't dumb. He knows. He knows fully well Virgil's his father. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna sit on that information for like 5 years.
What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. So, yeah, I had a problem with that.
Yeah, Lady and Trish, I think just all across the board for me were not the best, but we're not really going to touch on them because there wasn't too many scenes with them. If we
Yeah.
so actually there was a leak, and I don't believe it, but there was a game leak. I'm not sure if you heard about this, where they apparently claimed that DMC5 Special Edition will be coming out for the next Xbox relatively early in its life cycle. Like I think
Oh,
on launch.
I didn't. Is that the one on the Reddit that probably
Yeah.
leaked like a ton of Capcom? Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
shit on that thing.
yeah, I'll
It
say, yeah,
the slightest.
you've seen that one. I believe some of it because Code Veronica's remake has been leaked several times already. I feel like that one is legit, but they claim that 5 Special Edition was leaked. 4 new cutscenes and 3 new playable characters. The third one being Lucia. Well, no, 4 actually because it's Virgil, Lucia, Trish, and Lady. That's what I call bullshit, and that's what a lot of people call bullshit, because I don't think Capcom's going to put the effort in to bring back Lucia in DMC5, but 4 new cutscenes are not enough cutscenes if they're going to release Special Edition. We need a bit more than 4 new cutscenes.
This does not go under negatives. We're not to gameplay yet. But like as far as characters, I mean,
they were planks.
No. I mean, like after like Nero and Dante.
Oh,
it's like
V, great. No negatives there, obviously. I can't really.
Perfect human being.
I mean, he reads a book. What more could you want?
Yeah, no, V just doesn't have like a lot of use for him to mess up. Like outside of the scene where he's like, "Yeah, I am Virgil," like that.
I will tell you
scene,
the story of my birth.
Yeah, outside of that scene, there's not really too much. Like we've already gone into detail on that in the previous section, so I mean, again, without getting into, I can't really discuss the problem.
Mangler,
like as far as a character,
you're kind of chopping up a bit.
Without getting into lore, I can't really just. So as far as like
Mangler,
character-wise,
leave the call and come back in because you keep chopping out.
Okay. Right, how about now? So without getting into lore, I can't really discuss the problems with character that are issues with Virgil. So
yeah, but right now we're trying to just look at it like at the surface. Nico character again can be annoying, but that's really about it. Her herself, I don't think is all that bad. Actually, hang on a minute. So character designs, new character designs. All characters got revamped, remade for the game. Any thoughts on those?
We'll go over positives and negatives. Dante's, I think that was done poorly. It could have been better. It was so plain. His jacket was like not interesting in the slightest.
Yeah, it really felt like we went from a guy who wore an anime level of belts to a guy who just wore short shirts and a jacket.
I think Trish's. I mean, she's worn the same thing in every game, but like I think the RE engine didn't really do any favors to like the pants that she was wearing. Like they just look really weird.
I was actually gonna say that Trish's fucking her top looks weird in this one.
Yeah, it looks very weird.
Because
Lady on the other hand,
zipper, I think.
Yeah, Lady on the other hand, I think her outfit is like over the top. Like it's just got so much stuff on it. But I don't have a problem with it. It looks, I think it's fitting. It's just Lady itself, like she just looks way younger than she should be. Like she aged backwards. She got younger. Nero's outfit is really good. I think it's good for what it's a natural transformation from his coat, because it's like a blue coat on the outside with a red undershirt on the inside, symbolize that he's got like Dante and Virgil's ideologies. He carries both their colors, but blue is the one he primarily carries because he's Virgil's son. I like it. V's outfit, it's all right, I guess. It takes a little bit less meaning away from it now that I know he just stole it off of some dude. Like, he literally just reverse mugged him.
This is what we call a pro gamer move.
Virgil's outfit, good. That's all I'm gonna say. It's good.
It's like, it's fine. There's no reason to go any further on this one. It's fine.
Well, it's solid. Like, I never thought he would look good in black, but then he's just like, hold my Yamato.
What the fuck? I never thought he'd look. He just didn't look like he'd make black work, but then he did. Fuck.
Yeah, for whatever reason.
Regarding character designs, Dante felt the weakest. Trish, I think that's personally. I think a lot of the characters' models just did not transfer well with the other engine.
Also Nico. So I'd say if we were to categorize them, like Dante and Trish at the bottom, Lady, V, and like Nico are like mid tier, and then Nero and Virgil are at the top for me.
Well, for me, it feels like besides Virgil, I do have a problem with Nero having like the squarest jaw imaginable. That man's jaw is literally a block now. Again, used to be angular. Dante always had a square face. Nero was angular, and then DMC5 comes out, and Nero's like fucking just pure fucking Minecraft went on his face.
He's been lifting
weights. The models of the old characters did not come in well. Lady, I think had the best overall thing, but I've had problems with Trish's face. I've told you this before, and so have a lot of people actually. I had problems with Trish's face. I don't understand why she's in the uncanny valley the way she is. All the new characters look fine because they were made on this engine, but there's an uncanny valley on Trish. Lady, too young. I do have a problem with obviously the body proportions. I'm not going to get into that here. And anything else? The outfits themselves, a few were uninspired. Ladies over the top. I do think Trish should have had a new outfit by this point. I think they should have just scrapped the old outfit and given her like her anime outfit with a jacket at least. Something else. I know it's a Trish's iconic outfit, but come on.
I think they gave her an outfit when you beat Cavalier with like an S rank. They give her like a new outfit in the picture. I would have loved to see her in that one. No, it was like an over jacket or something.
It probably would have looked better in game too.
Yeah, it looked pretty good. I was just like, wait a minute, did they render like an actual jacket for her? So like, why did they not give her that?
Where is that? Why did we get that?
I guess because their excuse could be they didn't want her to lose it in the Clyfoth. Well, like, she can create her own clothing, so like...
that was a nice lore thing they added, finally, that they do create their own clothing, or they can create it with their powers. Like, we always knew...
We probably forgot until the end, they're like, fuck. Like...
How did she get her clothes back, guys? She fucking creates it. I love it. Let's make it happen.
So then I think it's time to get into lore, if you're done with character designs.
Yeah, I think we're good there. Oh, wait, hang on. Nico's outfit's terrible.
What?
Yeah. Now, she has an alternate outfit where she actually has, like, a full shirt and everything. That one looks fine. Her half shirt tape thing, that's just weird. It's just gross.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with it.
Alright, let's continue on lore.
Lore. Okay. So, we need to talk about... I want to say positives first. So, powers are shown off a lot more in this thing. So, demon creation clothing, as he said. Creation abilities in general are, like, used a lot. They're thrown all over the fucking place in this game, which is good.
Yeah.
The DMC gallery descriptions in general, oh my god, they reference so much stuff from the other games. The DMC 1 novels, the DMC 2 novels, they're canonicized by the gallery descriptions. Morrison just, like, craps info all over you. He info dumps you all over the reference material in this game. It's great.
I will say regarding the actual tidbits there, I do not like that Nico's the one who's The voice you have to read them in.
I
I would
don't mind
prefer
it.
divinity statue still.
I don't mind it because it's like an actual person there. I guess I would have. I guess I could have, or it would have been interesting to see someone else. Um, now that I've had Nico, maybe. But we did have Morrison in the same gallery, so it's not like we were only getting one perspective. It's just as far as like weapons and like demons and stuff, it was Nico, and then like other information and outside reference sources was Morrison.
Yeah.
Like his specifically his letters, and then there was like a third one that I am presuming was the divinity statue, um, because it was going over information that Morrison hadn't yet covered, and not in the same dialogue that he was using. So
Sounds
yeah,
about right.
nice to have multiple different perspectives. It's nice that Dante mentions Malay Island. It does that throwback in Mission 18. Nero missions Credo. Like everybody just throws out these references that are pretty, pretty like memorable shit that a lot of the DMC fan are favorite of. Credo was a great boss fight.
Hey, I remember
Stuff on Melee.
Malaya Island.
Yeah, no, yeah, all that stuff is fine and dandy.
Yeah, I said he's fucking wrong. That's
Is
not how
there
the Order went to Malaya Island.
is there anything else good that you can say about lore before we
Mm.
start curb stomping everything we just said?
I do want to try and keep speaking on the positives. This is the Japanese version of the game, so I will say that one. I do like the idea that technically this is the tree is the source of everything. I did like that idea. Kind of makes you wonder, like, whether or not there's technically a god in DMC though now, because Nero references one, but is that just like his religion? Is he referencing Sparta?
Which is weird because he's not even religious. Like he explains in the Deadly Fortune novel, he stopped being religious after Kyrie's parents died.
Kyrie
So
is like Nero's the exact example of going to church to get some poom. He's only
yeah.
there to support Kyrie and to try and get into his sister, which is the greatest bit of lore in DMC. I will always love that.
Oh my god.
It's Uno. Well done, my friend. Well done. All right, all joking aside though, I'm trying to think of any other lore tidbits. I guess it's kind of nice we saw how Eva died this time around. Oh, I guess do you want to mention anything about Eva as a character or no?
I do think they do a good job of portraying her as a mother. Like the first scene where she shows up, like her first. Granted, they're doing it like on the night they're getting attacked, so like I don't think there was like a better opportunity. But I would have liked to have more scenes with Eva. Now that we got this thing with Eva, but like seeing her be like, I got to go find Virgil. Like it's like, oh, that hurts.
And then she died.
Like no.
And then Virgil playing 50 miles away from the house apparently.
Like in the graveyard. Where's mommy?
Demon attacking me. Mom didn't love me. She didn't comfort me.
Time to DT. Time to pull that devil trigger.
This will not turn out badly for anybody.
Okay, so hang on. My connection is being trash. Apparently, it's struggling. So I'm gonna turn on my Wi-Fi because I'm operating on service right now.
Oh, you're still on your phone? Alright. Other positives regarding lore. I guess Machiavelli is a thing now. Like that was just in DMC 5. I'll wait for Mangler to pop back in before I continue too much further. I guess Machiavelli was nice. I guess.
Could you not hear me the entire time?
Nope.
Okay. I'm pretty sure Machiavelli's always been a thing. Like,
okay. So if he was name dropped at any point, it would have to have been in one of the expanded, like areas because Machiavelli was a brand new thing in DMC5's item listing.
as far as like the games, I don't.
Yeah, like in the games he was never mentioned. Like maybe he was mentioned in one of the audio CDs at one point, but
he might have been mentioned a couple times. I struggle to remember. Um, I don't mind him. I don't mind there being a demon gunsmith. That's just like, well,
Yeah,
I
they
guess he
might as well
doesn't.
just fucking have called him fucking Rodin and called it a day.
I think he could have had more significance in the plot. That's my one thing. Like he just Artemis gets. It's like I'm the one who made Artemis, and it's like, well, apparently Artemis can now be reverse transformed into a demon. It's like what? Like I thought this was a gun specifically designed to be a gun. Like I didn't know it came from like a demon's soul.
So it's actually a transformer.
Gilgamesh being retconned, a lot of people were bothered about that. I didn't have too much of an issue with it, but um yeah, not being a demon, just being like a form of a metal was kind of silly. Like I think they could have made this easier by like explaining that there was a demon made after it if they wanted to make it like a metal. There was a demon who took the name Gilgamesh. Um and was formed out of all of the hardest versions of its metal. But like they didn't specify. They're just like, nope. Gilgamesh is just a metal, an alloy that grows in the underworld. It's like, all right.
I feel like this was meant to like. I feel like that was meant to clarify like what the hell their material is specifically. It did
Mm-hmm.
nothing to actually like answer any questions, but I guess we can like now assume that Yamato and Rebellion were made out of Gilgamesh.
Well, we don't even know, but like I guess it means that if it is explained later, we know that like at bare minimum that's where a lot of that stuff comes from because like Gilgamesh, we can confirm it's extremely durable. So like Nero couldn't even like nick it. He basically had to attack the Qliphoth roots itself because he couldn't destroy the actual Gilgamesh armor. He could only destroy like the uh the Qliphoth roots that are like taking possession of it, I suppose. We're animating it.
Yeah.
So it's also that the Gilgamesh boss fight isn't like a boss fight. I mean, this is more so for gameplay purposes, but also for like narrative, like and lore, like how lore ties into this. It doesn't have any significance, like being there in the game.
You
It's
people
just
really hate that Gilgamesh boss fight, don't you?
it was a waste of a boss fight. And then we any other retcons before we get into the big one.
I'm trying to think on this one. I don't think so. I think that's just it.
Okay, Dante and Virgil's relationship being retconned as a brotherhood defined by hatred and grudging respect. It's a line that's thrown out there in Mission 20 when you start up the mission. Why is this there? I don't understand this. It's very clearly shown in DMC3 and in the manga that Virgil and Dante do care for each other in their own unique ways, as Dante literally names his shop after the fact that he was crying after he thought Virgil died, and he also cried after he thought Virgil died. He also tried to save him, and he kept the glove that Virgil cut on his desk and he even changed his whole outfit and his entire attire afterwards. Cleaned his shit up and became a businessman as a result of like Virgil dying, and kept the sword. And he literally like ditched rebellion for a decade because of how much it affected him, and he went into a massive depression after he thought he killed Virgil. Um, Virgil, on the other hand, went out of his way to save him from the Mad Hatter. He gave back the amulet to him, even though it was significant to him of his own to his plan. It was the one thing he needed, and he just gave it back because Dante asked him for it, and he knew it meant a lot to him. Um, he gave him a DT, even though he knew that's how a DT would be activated. I don't care what people say. He knew fully well. He already confirmed he had one, and he did it anyway. He jumps off the cliff, knowing fully well that if he does do this, Dante will go out of the demon world and won't be trapped there anymore. He literally tells him to leave so that he can save himself. He also is unable to kill Dante at the end of the game, despite being clearly able to do so, or at least able to deliver a blow that would wound him. He actually misses intentionally. If you watch the scene, he aims over Dante's shoulder, um, even though he sees him running up the river. So there's so much
Just
like
so
to
much
have
wrong.
yeah there's so much wrong with stating that here's what would have made a little bit more sense if they had said that um after that there it was a brotherhood defined by rivalry and grudging respect, and they took out hatred, and they said there was some hatred in there after the events of 1, and that was still pent up from 3. That would have made more sense. But the whole line where they say like, "Oh, how many times have we fought?" It's hard to say. It's the only memory I have of us since we were kids. I'm like, wait, what? What? That's fucked up. That's also probably wrong, but like I can't officially say that it's wrong because we didn't get scenes of you.
Well, to
So,
be fair, he says it's the only memory I have, so Dante could just be fucking
yeah, but
retarded.
no. Virgil smiles and affirms this though. He's like, he's like, yeah, no. Like even if you want to say that Virgil doesn't verbally confirm it, he smiles while he's looking at him, and he's like, yeah, no,
Well,
like I
okay,
remember
so
that too.
I think to make the, I think Visions of V provides some context here that's important. So there's one scene in Visions of V. It's like I think on chapter 6 or 7.
We're talking the game specifically.
Well, yeah, I know, but since we're doing the 1 year retrospective, essentially, we gotta add this little extra context.
All right.
There
Go
is a
ahead.
scene where Virgil and Dante are kids, and Dante continuously wants to fight while Virgil wants to read his book. So
Mm.
Dante having memories of Virgil being kids makes sense. Virgil's smile could be in reference to the fact that Dante hasn't changed.
Um, I mean, I could see that given that Virgil has, because Virgil's the only character between the two of them that's actually like, well, granted, Dante and Virgil both have changed in their own ways, but like Dante's character arc ended over a decade ago. Virgil's just ended, so he is the knowledge is fresh on him. Dante's like was like again when he was 28. He's like 44 now, so that was almost half his existence ago. Like you know, one is fresh on the mind and the other isn't. Uh, I just think it's kind of weird because it also tries to portray them as if like they're both just two like Twin Review does sort of have a point. It's sort of meant to present as if they're just two dumb people. Granted, he didn't have the proper nuance to explain why they have problems with each other because he just assumed this problem builds itself off the back of the reboot, as if the reboot didn't take this from the source material to begin with. But that doesn't mean like I mean we can draw comparisons either way. It is important to note that they're still pretty unreasonable,
Yeah.
but why the reasons for why they start the conflict are completely valid. Why they're still fighting, maybe not so much. Which
I
is why
mean,
Nero's there to bring it up, but you know.
clearly it's not the conflict. He just moved the fucking battlefield somewhere else. They immediately decided
Well,
to just
no,
leave
he
him.
did stop the conflict. The way that he made it so that they're now compromising. It's just the way just they're not intending to kill each other anymore,
Their
which is
compromise was to get the fuck out of there.
get the fuck out of Dodge so Nero can't interrupt them anymore because that was too awkward.
They're all like, "I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you slightly more. You
Yeah,
guys are not gonna
so
kill each
Capcom,
other."
if you're watching this video, that was a very dumb idea to make it seem like Dante and Virgil always hated each other. They never did. Okay, they never did. They made there's a line in the DMC manga that says they never saw eye to eye. They didn't really like each other. We knew that, not hatred. Hatred was never explicitly stated, even as far as like the DMC5's gallery descriptions. Virgil just states that when a guy asks him like why he's writing in a William Blake book, he says, "I have a twin brother and we fight a lot." So that's really all the context we have.
He's like, "We fight over
And
everything. This means it's mine."
yeah,
Dante, when he sees
I
that
win the
name,
fight.
damn.
I win the fights because I'm the older twin.
I fucked him.
So yeah, that's as far as retcons. Those are the big ones. Also lore. Virgil like being in 5. How does that happen? Like, I'm glad that he's there. How does he get there? Because like Zim over here has had to come to the theory that he travels. He basically DeLorean time travels to the future after he explodes in DMC1.
It's the
Like
only explanation.
the fact that he has to come up with something so ludicrous because you haven't provided an explanation, Capcom. That's not.
It's gonna watch. I'll put money right now. It's gonna be the reason. I guarantee you. I've been pretty on the nose with these things when it comes to Devil May
I
Cry.
mean,
I guarantee you.
I'm here. Here's the thing. I think half of it was done correct. I think yes, him dying and him being infected with corruption was the way to go because it provides clarity. But all you had to do was explain that, like when even if you were going to keep the Trish V talking scene, which I don't think you should have. If you're going to keep it in, all you had to do was say like suffering defeat after defeat in the circles of hell. There you go. Like literally 3 fucking words. It's like, all right, he was in the circles of hell, and then show like maybe one more line of dialogue that I don't know. Like afterwards, you figure out what happens to Yamato. But all you had to do was explain that's where he was. I don't think anyone would have a problem with that because again, there's a scene with Burial. Burial literally says in DMC4, "You're just like he was." He's not talking about Sparta, hasn't seen him in 2,000 years. Not talking about Dante because he just refers to him as the son of Sparta later, and he's not playing the fucking pronoun game.
Mangler and his crazy
Only
headcanon.
no, it's not crazy headcanon. It's literally process of elimination.
Mangler,
And the
take it
only
easy.
person he could have been referring to is Virgil.
Nope.
And all you had to do was say that he went to a circle of hell. It doesn't even need to be the fire hell. I don't give a shit if you retcon that scene. There just needs to be an explanation of where he went, and that isn't given. So, things I didn't like about the lore, that would be one of them.
Yeah, everything regarding Virgil's backstory seems to be like super bad in this game. I know why they did it. They did it specifically to help set up the character in the game, but they did not do any favors there for most of everything.
I mean, I think the issue is that they make it sound as if like this was probably one of the only ways that they could have done this. When it's very clear that the reason, the way in which, since this is technically characters and lore together, I can talk about this. The way in which they have their conflict is based off of something that's always been there. When it's like that's not a reason for them to do this. Visions of V, this is the year afterwards, has explained that he has problems with Dante very clearly due to him being the reason that he becomes Nello Angelo. Because if Dante wasn't involved in 3 at all, if he just fucked off after Virgil took his amulets, or had just not been a baby about it and let him take his amulets. Like, granted, in character that wouldn't be as consistent, but him leaving after he gets beaten by Virgil, there was a completely legitimate reason for him to do that, and he didn't. He thought it would be better to go pick another fight to someone he just lost to and just got crushed by.
To be fair, he did end up winning those, or he did end up tying the next fight and then winning the last one.
Yeah, but regardless of whether he was going to win or not, he shouldn't have gone. And that would have been the end of that. Virgil wouldn't have been tortured. He probably would have been able to make up some amends with Virgil afterwards. Because Virgil would have been powerful enough to get him to, like, explain, like, hey, you're going to listen to, like, my problems, and I'm going to explain to you what the issue is. And you are just going to have to sit there and take it.
You are going to listen to my problems. Dante activates Cindy team response.
Yeah, so that all they had to do to fix this, literally all they had to do, was reference Nello Angelo, and that Virgil is literally just so angry from the fact that Dante is the reason that he becomes that, and then he ends up getting tortured by Mundus, and then he ends up getting, like, fed corruption that is slowly killing him once he goes outside the Nello Angelo. And he's left in the circles of hell without Yamato, without his precious sword, so he loses everything because of Dante just being involved. And it's like, yeah, he could be like, I definitely accept responsibility for, like, raising somebody grew and the consequences it came with, but you didn't have to be one of those consequences. You could have left and you fucked me over. And then Dante could just be like, well, no, I had to stop you because of reasons that I presume were
correct. That's more than enough of a reason for the fight. You don't have to create this imaginary hatred between them. like why?
Let's be real. Virgil just pissed off Dante and recognized him in the Michelangelo armor.
Why do you keep saying that?
Because that's the reason. So, regarding the torture, in Visions of V, Virgil seems to give, like, no fuck he's being tortured. He's just like, what, is this all you got? Stabbed, like, through the chest completely and everything. And he's like, I can still keep going. I'll still kick your ass. Because, again, his main focus is on Nello Angelo, specifically becoming Nello Angelo. I don't think it was so much, like, losing the moon disc. It was just that he was, like, taken like that into that form. And then Dante comes along, and Dante's like, who is this weird-looking fucker? Look, my mangler, I'm just saying, you have to ignore a lot of what happened there to say that Dante has, like, no... Or Virgil has no... No, he muted himself. Has no consequences there regarding what happened there.
Sorry, I was going to the restroom. I'm back. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So, I think that's probably the most... Do you have anything you can talk about it?
The only other retcon that was bad was the fruit and moon disc, but we already kind of touched on that one earlier. Yeah. So next up, we're on to your favorite section, gameplay.
Okay. Let's talk about what's good. All right. Nero. He has an actual moveset now. Four doesn't count. I'm sorry. When the best combo mats and the best forms of freestyle that we have on the internet are Nero, just jump cancel spamming and then using caliber over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and using glitches between like inertia and reversals, and like all it is just caliber, reverse caliber, reverse shuffle. That's all he could do, and snatches that don't work and don't have the proper timing. I have a real problem with that. Also with how like really stuck a lot of the animations are, and the fact that the jumping that he isn't properly directional, and it's way too limited. 5 comes along and is like, look, bitch, we're going to show you how the DMC reboot and 4 should have done it. And then gives me complete directional jumping. They give me air taunting, ways to do exceed on the fly in the air. They make the exceed timings better, more useful. They made Blue Rose something that doesn't have just the normal pea shooter. It still has the knockback for useful, various useful applications. Yeah. For timing and so on and so forth. And the color up charge shot is also really useful because I don't have to spend a million years banking a charge shot to juggle an enemy or do heavy damage, because now I can just put in special bullets and shoot you 3 times. That was so useful. They made Blue Rose so much better. Also giving him Payline and Hardway, giving him a proper charge move and a forward aerial. About time.
Payline fucking sucks. I don't know what the fuck you're on about.
Reflects projectiles, has super armor, and travels downward. What's not to like?
Dude, that downward arc is fucking... that's a straight 90 degrees. You can't hit shit if you fucking time that off badly. Yeah, there's no room to fucking...
I'm sorry.
What was that?
I'm a Nero main.
It's like, get out of here, you fucking V player. I'm talking about
I understand if you were going to be like, hey, I prefer Caliber, or I think Caliber is better, I would disagree with you. But at least you're like, oh, hey, Caliber. Just to say Payline sucks with no context.
Payline's a trash-ass ability. Honestly, you Nero mains are fucking insane.
You Nero players. Okay, so besides his core moveset, do you have any thoughts on it? Like, do you just
they had I think a forward basic ability where he kind of jumps at somebody with his sword, a forward basic combo. I remember that.
Yeah,
one.
That's hardline.
That's hardline.
You just kind of charge it, and there's like a flash, and then he throws forward. It's a nice launcher. It also he just launches. Like, the animation really satisfying as well.
Yeah, Hardline I thought was a really nice addition to his kit. I did not like the forward-back inputs. They added a new input to the game to add more moves, and I hate the new input on Nero. It's like forward-back in order to do the combos for some of them, and I hated it.
Forward-back.
Well,
Well, I mean, that's right. What is it? Because Split was forward in the air.
Yeah.
And then people were like, yeah, why is it backwards? It's like, well, because Payline is thing. Would you prefer Payline be backwards? Like,
Yeah, no. So yeah,
that
because
would be weird.
that was kind of trippy for me because I couldn't use the same moves I fucking had in 4 because they added the fucking new move where it's like, oh, go
I
fuck
get it,
yourself.
but we also have to understand that there's hundreds of thousands, maybe even like a million people at this point that have played 5 that might not have played 4. Maybe a million is a little bit too much, but there are definitely hundreds of thousands who picked up DMC5 as their first game in the series, and they don't have this problem.
Yeah, because
So,
yeah, I mean, obviously, if it's your first introduction to the series, you're not going to have this problem.
well, I have to mention them for just for context. I mean, I know most of us had to deal with that, and we're like, oh, fucking muscle memory. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Origins Grand Nero. The EX, okay, so Blue Rose, yeah, Blue Rose was Blue Rose got a much needed buff from DMC4, absolutely. I still do charge shots all the time, but the fact that Color Up exists is nice.
Oh, it is just it's like sex. Also, the max act timing is. I mean, some people say it's harder. I think in terms of frame timing, it is a little bit harder.
I was gonna say I don't know what the fuck you're on about when you're saying the EX act and Max act is easier. It feels harder in this one because I guess
So,
it is
so it
smoother.
is if you're used to 4, but like that's also because like 4 had way less to practice in terms of like the amount of time that you dedicated to various tech and various like points of Nero's moveset. You just have so much more you have to work with in 5. So you have less time to try and practice something like max act. It's also that the frame rate and then like just the game speed in general is a bit different.
Yeah.
Because it is faster than 4s in the game, in the base speed. And a lot of people practice this on 4's turbo, which is the fastest if we don't include 5's turbo.
Does 5 have turbo mode?
It doesn't, but it has like mods on the PC. But I'm not. I guess only mention those for. Also, if anyone is wondering why we haven't gone into like general gameplay things, like we'll get into that, like level design and all that stuff. We're just gonna go over the characters first because we only have 3 of them. We have to go over. So besides that, I'm just gonna go over DT before I go over the breaker system because the breaker system has the largest discussion behind it.
Oh, I also hate how many buttons you have to fucking manage with Nero. Like, I mean, they literally put DT on a completely separate button because their breaker took the original DT button. Who the fuck designed this?
Hang on. Positive.
Positive. Nero's DT does not give you any extra damage, from what I understand.
What are you talking about?
I was told by like several. I think even Devil told me this. Several people. Apparently, Nero's DT does not give you the same damage increase Dante's does, or V's. Nero's DT gives you a smaller damage increase.
Yeah, because you're not like flatly increasing your damage. You're just adding like other hitboxes.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Well, not necessarily because you actually have a higher damage put than Dante.
Sorry, some of us can't hit RT every single time after a hit, Mangler.
Is that like overall, yeah, if you took base Nero and then didn't use Exceed and then matched him up against DT, Dante's gonna win in terms of damage output. But if you take Exceed Nero, even with a couple Exceeds, even with most of the Exceeds, he will destroy Dante's damage output. It's not even comparable. Not to mention
Mangler's lying again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but
also DT in general, so it retains the same benefits that DT has in 4. Only now you have the ability, if you activate the DT animation when you're at a certain point where you're moving, you don't have to perform the cancel. You still have the ability to perform the perfect cancel, which can break you out of any move. That's also very useful. It's also a safe move as well. So, that's useful. Summon swords are still there. All the animations look like really clean and crisp. I'm just going to kind of throw in Bringer Knuckle here as well.
Yeah.
As well as Flat Top. Having a triple jump is really useful, especially considering air hike. Like I played, I think, for like probably 2 months straight in practicing on the Void with just Flat Top, and I took off air hike because I wanted a second jump that had a smoother animation as well as the glide. And it is so much better than air hike in every way.
But
Like
okay, wait. So you only have a double jump then, because you only have.
so what I did was I took off air hike, but I kept flat top on. So I used the triple jump as my double jump, and I
Yeah.
removed air hike entirely. The animation is so much better, so much more useful for lift because air hike kind of destroys a little bit of your momentum because it puts a platform under you.
Yeah.
It doesn't like reset it, but it just kind of. Well, I guess it does technically. It's hard to describe. Like you can feel it. You can feel the difference if you put the platform underneath your feet.
You can feel the difference.
You feel how crappy it is. That, and I would say the bringer knuckle was one of the more useful things in terms of like later stage Nero play, but it takes a little bit of time and adds a significantly higher amount of depth to his kit. And you can just create spectrums. I love that. Like being able to juggle enemies, do long-lasting, satisfying combos, and just having the ability to protect yourself. That's also just really cool.
It's like, oh, I love it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, well, that's all I have to say about that outside of breakers. So, what about you?
So regarding Nero's gameplay, breakers. I'm gonna be honest here. That they're hit or miss for me. Some were good, some weren't good. I know they all have unique like situations where they could be good, but the overwhelming majority of a lot of these breakers were not good, in my personal opinion.
No. I meant outside of breakers.
Oh, okay, outside breakers. No, outside breakers. Nero's great. I can't think of any specific. Like the triple jump was nice. Bringer knuckle sucks. It does. You have to literally either get your perfect timing down, or you have to change your control schemes really fucking significantly to make bringer knuckle effective.
Well, no.
Okay, so when you get bringer knuckle, it comes on your right trigger button.
You can just lock on inputs, like because like when you when you exceed, right, Nero performs a much longer animation. So if I do high roll, right, like X high roller, and I do like exceeded 2 or 3. Oh my god, this connection is actually trash. If I do 2 or 3, Nero will be sent flying into the air, and during that entire, I can spam out because he can't be knocked out of that animation unless he's hit, or unless I perfect can with either
Mangler,
or the
Mangler, disconnect from the call and reconnect again. I'm all alone. Mangler?
That was actual. Okay. Oh my god, I'm still struggling.
Yeah, I don't understand what happened halfway through here. Like we were doing good, so good.
So the basically, if you perform like an extended exceed move, like 2 or 3, or even just 1, you perform any sort of animation that takes like almost a second or 2. You can spam like whatever your bringer knuckle is, and it really just depends on what you put for the output. For me, I put I put like breakaway on like right trigger, and I put DT back where it's normally mapped, and then I put bringer knuckle on the D-pad because it just feels so much better for me. It's so much easier to just do that on the lock-on inputs rather than in single strike. Because most people don't use DT outside of or bringer knuckle outside of finishers and launchers and like aerial moves, which are usually the lock-on ones. They're not because like actually pretty much everything in the air is lock-on. You can only use like the non-lock-on based moves when you're on the ground when you're doing the dial a combo thing, like the 4 swing, like oh hey Y or triangle or whatever, like red queen combo A through D. I mean.
Yeah, no. A lot of Nero's new updates or just new abilities in general in 5 were really nice additions. He does feel slightly weaker than he did in 4, but that's fine. You get enough to work with.
Also, having like an actual bringer again, really nice with all of its abilities as well.
Near the end of the game,
But,
just fucking game back to Devil Bringer. So it's like, why do you even use Wire Snatch to begin with? Oh, Wire Snatch has a bigger range. Oh, why didn't you say so?
Well, yeah. Also, we're getting into the breakers now. Wire Snatch has an actual input that works. I don't know if anyone is familiar with DMC4, but DMC4 is Snatch, but Snatch in 4 is trash. It doesn't work properly. So when you grab an enemy in the air with Snatch, like if I jumped above a Scarecrow and grabbed him, the input timing doesn't work for the enemy step. Like when I grab him and then I jump when he gets to the top, it doesn't work. I have to time it before he gets there to get an enemy step. That shouldn't be happening. It should be working solidly with the timing of the game speed on both normal and turbo speed. It doesn't work on either one. I have to time it right before, like the frame before he gets there. I don't mind doing that if all of these moves were intentionally designed with that instruction, but they're not. And this is just fixed in 5. This problem doesn't happen in 5. And it's so much better. Also, I can use Wire Snatch while I have no breakers. That's also great. And I have 2 different versions of Snatches. Now, in case one input isn't good enough for me, I got a different input. That's great.
No, yeah. So for me, the breakers though, the only good thing about again, so for me, it's individual case by case with breakers. I
got kicked out for some reason.
Yikes. I think after we're done with gameplay, we might just save the other stuff maybe for the stream later tonight because it sounds like your actual shit's getting really bad, and I'd rather not be stuck.
Yeah, well, let's finish gameplay. We'll do 4, 5, and 6 in like a part 2.
Right. Yeah, sounds good. We'll try and hit that up later.
So
regarding the gameplay, Nero again, breakers, they're really hit or miss for me. A lot of them weren't good, but I do like the fact that when you break a breaker, it is an invulnerability frame. It completely gets you out of everything. That was nice. I think giving Nero an escape like that was a good choice on Capcom's part.
Well, I found pretty much all of them to be useful except for most of them were useful in most circumstances. Tomboy probably suffers the most out of any of them, outside of any particular circumstance. I'm including DLC breakers, but I'm not including Pasta Breaker and Sweet Surrender because they're not useful in most circumstances. Sweet Surrender can only be used to heal you. Pasta Breaker can only be used to swap weapons, and both of them take time.
Well, to be fair, Sweet Surrender doesn't take time if you fully break it, but you heal less if you fully break it.
I'm saying, like, the practical usage of Sweet Surrender is just to use Breakage, because the basic breaker move doesn't work properly. Like, it just doesn't heal you anywhere near enough. And the amount of time it would take is ridiculous.
Well, let's see. Okay, so if I remember correctly, Sweet Surrender is a 4-bar HP heal on Breakage.
It's 3.
It's 3?
Yeah, it's 3.
And then if you heal normally, it goes on for, I think, as long as you keep it healing.
Goes on for what?
If you don't break it and you just activate normally, do you know how long it goes for, or does it just go forever?
I've never been able because I've always eventually at some point I get hit.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely one of the problems with Sweet Surrender too. Is once you get hit, it breaks it. That being said, it was kind of stupid they gave the healing ability to Nero, considering they give him a taunt that heals him too.
Yeah, but it's only once, but
I mean that's still like fucking 2 HP bars to heal up instantly. It just seems kind of redundant that we're going to give the guy who already has a built-in heal the heal mechanic. If anything, V should have gotten a fucking some sort of heal ability.
I would have preferred Pasta Breaker and what's it called? Pasta Breaker and Sweet Surrender's resources to go into one good breaker, and then like Gerber and GP01 to have some more directional inputs. That would have been kind of nice. But other than that, I think most of them have their usages. Like, obviously, Tomboy, some of the ones that I think were less useful to me at first. Because I saw Overture, Punchline, Gerbera, GP01, Ragtime, and like...
Let's be clear here. The weakest breakers were Tomboy and Rawhide.
No, I'd probably say that, like... If we're talking the weakest, I would definitely say that either Helter Skelter or Mega Buster is weaker. Probably Helter Skelter.
Helter
Because Helter
Skelter
Skelter,
can break through armor, can break through like people's guard though.
yeah, but that's only useful against enemies who guard. Like against
Yeah.
aerial enemies, all you can do is like
Okay, so tell me the enemy
breakage.
Tell me the enemy where Rawhide is useful against.
Every enemy in the game, like because it parries literally anything. It has auto parry frames,
Oh, does
and
it?
it also like juggles enemies. It also extends your grab reach and does really high grab damage.
Sends your grab reach. What the fuck are you on about?
Yeah, it extends your grab reach further than any, as far as like your snatch, and it actually is like a proper damage grab. You can like build up over time. That's more than Helter Skelter is. Like Helter Skelter does have like some directional like input and some change in the air and some air control, but nothing compared to Rawhide. Like outside of the breakage, like literally to break the breaker. But like I can get as much usefulness, if not more, out of like the basic breaker action from Rawhide than I can from the breakage of Helter Skelter. Mega Buster I'd put above Helter Skelter, if only because it changes all the animations for your movement and gives you a dodge roll that's better than Table Hopper that you just have always on. You have a passive charge shot that charge up, and the breakage can be useful for combos and big damage. Like it's very misleading. If you look, it's like to the appearance of Mega Buster is misleading because you look at it and you're just like, oh, this must be useless because it's like a gift breaker. But then you pick it up and you're like, oh, this is not useless.
Oh, never mind then.
I would say Tomboy is definitely less useful than Helter Skelter, though, because Tomboy takes away your
Joe
lock
sucks.
on and locks you into too many animations, too many.
So no, Tomboy just gives you 2 attacks, and they're both bad.
Well, no, Tomboy gives you 3.
Okay, so
Technically.
you have the Y attack, which is no matter what the same rush around attack, and then you have the gun, which is garbage.
Well, no, the gun does an insane amount of damage. It's
Yeah,
just
let
like
me just go
takes
ahead
too
and
long.
stand still against these multiple opponents and then open fire on them. Let's see how well that works out. And then you can't even fire it in the air. Come on, at least let me fire it downwards.
It's nice for finishers. It's also nice for like juggling enemies, but then again, like every other ability in the game can juggle enemies. It really your only argument for Tomboy is if you just want variety, not in terms of utility. There's very little utility you can provide from Tomboy outside of like super specific cancels. I'm like the rush attack. The rush attack and like
The
I
rush
guess the
attack
forward
is
and rush attack.
fine for AoE or for like crowd control, but there's better ways to crowd control with Nero.
It's almost fine for a proper juggle, but then you have to turn Nero around. Without Blue Rose and without Red Queen Caliber, because again, they're locked under Tomboy right now.
Yep.
I think if Tomboy could use like proper exceed moves, it would have been one of the best breakers out there.
But
Yeah.
I
So
think if Tomboy would have just given you fucking normal, like anything, just normal moves in general. So when I heard about Tomboy, I initially thought Tomboy was just going to buff everything consistently, just not buff it as much as XC actually does. But then they decided to just fucking ruin your entire fucking kit.
yeah, I mean, I just don't like being locked out of all my weapons. I guess this is going under the discussion of things I don't like, but because we keep jumping back and forth.
I mean, it's really hard to just focus on one side because there's always going to be that other side like lurking in the back of your head there.
So, I mean, I'd say the breakers for me, for the most part, were pretty solid because even in as far as like all their own specific applications, they're really, really good. Even the bad ones in the times where they're useful are still good. Like Helter Skelter, nothing else really destroys guards the same way that one does. And you can at least use breakage to completely ignore someone who's guarding. So at the end of the day, if they have a guard and you have Helter Skelter, you're winning that outcome if you know what you're doing. Um, just how the breakers work in tandem with your normal combos and the freedom and the different types of combinations that they give you is just so good. Like Gerbera working with literally everything with like color up, and like setups for color up between like the charge, the little, like, what's it called, the jockey move where you shoot a projectile out of Gerbera to propel yourself through the air. Um, that the basic Gerbera having the ability to reflect projectiles.
Yeah.
In exchange for like close timing was good. Overture's bomb, punchline in its entirety. Oh my god.
I actually was not the biggest fan of Punchline. Like, I mean, I can see why it's good or why it's useful, but personally, I don't use Punchline all that much.
The punch is really useful, but it's just like the rocket arm and the jumps. It also looks crazy and cool as hell. Aesthetic wise, all these breakers are awesome. Utility wise, most of them are awesome. Ragtime is also really nice. I'm not going to go.
Ragtime's just great in general.
What's that? Miniature Quicksilver?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, it's literally time manipulation. There's no way it's not going to be good.
But done correctly.
I don't know what you mean by done fucking correctly. The first Quicksilver was fine.
Not for balance wise. It was horribly balanced. Like, you could literally just like neg any boss.
I'm pretty sure it's just DMC3 being poorly balanced in general. Like, Virgil showed up with Yamato and was like, hey. Actually, speaking of Switch Edition, have you actually played it yet or no?
Oh, we're still on gameplay. We've only gone over Nero, but let's see. What are the things that you dislike about Nero besides what you mentioned?
Way too bloated of a kit. Like, I understand, we want to get more options, but like all my controllers buttons, for fuck's sake, they made me use the fucking D-pad. Like, at what point is too much, too much? That's not convenient. That's not convenient for a player, especially people who use that claw grip. I can't imagine they'd be fucking very pleased about Nero with that one. Those fucking animals who use the fucking claw. I'm sure you've seen how they hold their controllers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fucking animals.
I didn't really have a problem with him having stuff on D-pad because he needed more stuff on the D-pad. My problem was that they didn't at least consider the possibility of a different mode with breaker switching. I liked the limited resource management idea. I personally prefer preset loadouts because that makes my creativity so much more unique.
Oh,
and
yeah,
so much more interesting.
Putting 8 overtures in must be so creative.
No, because like I can actually work with like what I have in terms of limited resources. Every breaker placement is meaningful and has its own set of implication as far as like what my combo is going to be. Totally. Whereas if I have breaker switching, that kind of eliminates it offers more control, but like it also eliminates any sort of we have barriers and limits on what we can do, so we can express creative limits within, and not having any barriers whatsoever would be kind of stupid. Which is why I think there should have been an alternate mode for people who wanted to do breaker switching. Like, I think you should have been able to swap between non-breaker switching and breaker switching. Well, no, that's one thing that I think was a missed opportunity. Also, Tomboy disappointed me. Knocking me out of moves.
Tomboy was just a disappointment all across the board.
Pasta Breaker also disappointed me because I thought it would be more useful.
I mean, what the fuck are you expecting? It's literally a fucking fork with some fucking screws attached to it. Did you buy your HDMI?
That would at least be useful.
No, that's the Xbox One. I'm gonna try to connect to the Xbox in a bit because I tried with my computer. You already did. Well, I tried with my computer, but it didn't work. Did you buy the part yesterday though that you were missing? No, I'm just using the Xbox One. Turns out it did stretch the full distance.
So anything else?
Regarding Nero's gameplay, no. Again, I played Nero for like the required amount of time. I tried playing it a bit further. I like the invulnerability frames and all that jazz, but for the most part, that was about it. Because I wasn't really too hot on Nero for the most part because he unfortunately felt the worst one to play in my personal opinion.
All right, on to V. Anything you want to say before I go on my spiel?
V's amazing, and if you say anything wrong, you're fucking wrong.
Well, we are going over positives, so let's talk about gameplay. Okay, aesthetic, presentation. V is the best. There, I said it. Best taunts. Best. He shows up and he owns the entire room. He's the only character that I can pick up after feeling rusty for months, and I feel like a god. Not because I can summon Nightmare, but because I can just summon my summons and then just have like my idea of fun is taunting like a little shit and not getting punished for it.
Say it, you fucking whore.
Summoning Nightmare and riding him on promotion has some interesting setups with what's it called, Shadow's little spike move and Griffin's lightning bolts. I think V does have combo potential because he's had it. He's obviously had a couple combo mads on YouTube. But, for what it's worth, for what his kit is, I think he's an almost finished character. Like, he's really close. He just had like one more summon or a couple extra moves for Shadow and Griffin each, and maybe another mode for Nightmare. He'd be even more fun. I think as far as a summoning character, they did him pretty well. Like, mechanics-wise, I just think he needed a little bit more. Or for what we got, I don't think it was bad. I think people shit a little bit too much on V. Like, they're just like, yeah, no, he's boring to play. It's like, really? I don't think he's the most boring to play. Have you played DMC 2? Have you tried replaying DMC 1? I love DMC 1 Dante, but, like, please, don't even sit here and tell me he's got combos. The fuck out of here. As far as, like, his choice, his, like, you know, his execution, I think the cane moves are done really well. Obviously, again, just his taunts. His launchers are really good. Griffin is the best launcher in the game.
Oh,
why?
Hang on a minute. So I'm on the Reddit right now. Apparently, there might be Capcom announcements today at 1 my time. So in about
We're almost done. We have to get through Dante.
Okay, so regarding V, okay, let me go ahead and break this down for anyone who cares. V is the single best character in the fucking game, hands fucking down. You can literally not even look at the screen and still win the fight. What more do you want? Nightmare might not show up ever at the right fucking time, but when he gets there, he gets there. My biggest. I think what they could, and I know we're not supposed. Okay, I do enjoy V's kit a lot. I wish there was more.
Bad.
No, because everything about V is great. There just needs to be improvements. Number one,
what we didn't like, rather.
You should have been able to choose Nightmare's summons. Like, you should have had some input decision on Nightmare's summons.
I think Nightmare should have had another mode accessible to him. Promotion, either that or promotion should have had some more useful moves. The summons needed some more aerial stuff.
Fucking Shadow's aerial is so fucking retarded because he has trouble attacking in the... He can attack in the sky just fine, but his AI will not do it when you activate him.
Some of his moves need to be swapped around. Like his needles. Like why is his needle input for a launcher mapped to the second level of his charge move, which is an AoE spike effect? I don't understand this. When you map that with Griffin, like when Griffin's launching in, the thing you need to do is that the Shadow needs to do the move where he shoots the spikes out all over the ground. There's 12 of them, and they go surround the arena. Okay, problem is that this is extended to a spike move that he needs to be charged. I'm fine with it being a charge input. Why is the spike first? I don't why does he have that? Why does that fucks up a significant portion of the combo potential?
You know, I just thought of a quality of life update that really should be put into the next game.
Save it.
But no, so V there. Shadow needs more. Griffin, actually, for the most part, is fine. I think Griffin is limited, but I kind of understand why the characters are so limited, because you're not really controlling them.
Griffin did need his lightning bombs and his lightning bird. I still think he needed that.
Lightning bird would have made it too unbalanced. If you had like an automatic lightning bird flying around,
no. It wouldn't have been forever. It would have been like on 1 or 2 passes, and that would have been it. and it would have only been able to juggle lower weight enemies. So like Helantoras, Proto Angelos, any of the mini bosses, they wouldn't have been able to be juggled, but the lower ones should have, and they would have had some static effects.
I mean, but literally what you do is you're like, hey, you don't exist anymore.
The lightning bombs would have been nice for some shockwaves. You could have molded those in pretty well with V having like bigger teleport kits. That was another thing I was going to mention, is that V needed more abilities with his canes and his teleport
Well,
kits.
that's what I was going to say. That what V really needed, in my personal opinion, was just more of things for V to do.
Yeah, he just needed a basic move set. He didn't even have that. He had like swing with cane, teleport with cane, summon canes.
I think if he would have had some cane combos, I think V would be significantly more liked by the community.
Yeah, no.
As it is right now, it's just like one hit. Even when you activate his taunt, it's still just one hit forever, but at least you don't recoil back when you do it.
Yeah, and it does more damage. That's really it. I think Griffin was probably the best designed of all the summons. He just needed, I'd say 2 more moves. Shadow needed some of his inputs moved around, and then some better aerials. And then Nightmare, I think, needed another mode. Besides that, maybe 1 more summon, but like honestly, that with some cane moves, I think that would have been enough for V to be a solid character, like a finished character.
Again, there was also that unreleased team attack that apparently there was an all-in team attack with all your summons, which I think probably would have been super awesome, but they, I guess it wasn't good enough for Cap.
Also, V having the ability to turn all of his summons on autopilot and have them murder everything on the screen without you having to work was kind of stupid.
No, what was stupid is the only way to empower your summon is to put them on auto.
What do you mean?
When you put them on auto, they do more damage. They are stronger. You empower them.
Yeah, because you infuse them with DT. I'm saying the problem is they're automatic under a system that has them specifically designed to be manual. So the balance goes out the window.
Well, what I was saying is that my problem is there's no way to just enhance them without being manually controllable.
Because at least with like Nightmare, when you summon him, if you try to use some of his stronger moves, you have to like prep. You have to like roll. You have to do a legal move to transport yourself back. Then do like the giant laser. You have to do the forward laser. You can't just like swing forever. It takes so much time to set him up. But like if you summon him automatically, he just does so much damage and he's just a tank. And he can't be harmed and there's no risk involved with summoning him. And he can't be stalemated. I'm fine with him like reviving the other characters, but he can't be stalemated or he can't be forced to retreat. When if he takes damage, you don't lose DT. Like he does when you do with promotion, which is kind of silly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you gotta balance it somehow.
Yeah, promotion arguably is the best balance, and has like the most potential for Nightmare having combos, and is the most interesting thing about his setups. It's the least thing that's expanded upon in his kit, which is disappointing.
Talking a lot of shit for the best fucking character in the game.
Now we move on to if you have anything else.
Canon V, Super V. Moving on.
You're ridiculous. Dante. So, what we liked.
Everything.
What?
Everything. Okay, let me rephrase this in a better way. Oh. In comparison to the other 2 Dantes we've gotten, this is by far the best complete package of Dante, period. He's got the tools to do everything. He doesn't feel weak as shit if you don't know what you're doing. And more importantly than that... What?
Well, I was gonna say we could mention the improvements from 4 in the second
everything.
Version, that'll be quality. Like we'll be going over
everything.
So I will mention it here briefly though. Unlike in 4, his damage output isn't garbage as base Dante, and it actually properly staggers the enemies.
Yes.
His again some of his outputs got removed, like drive got mapped around to some other things. I didn't like that as much, but again, for what it's worth, I did enjoy his launchers having like the correct amount of launch, like what's it called? Sending enemies to the moon with what's it called? wasn't really my thing because I liked being able to send them sort of a decent length with props so that they could come down and I could hit them with Shredder. So they basically took the prop from 3 and the Shredder from 4 and made them for 5, which was great. So you could still launch them for air combos if you wanted. But, I could actually do a follow-up into Shredder, and I didn't lose that option because they got sent to the other planet above me. Like that, so much better. All of his styles don't feel weak as shit anymore. They buffed Gunslinger, which is good. They shouldn't. They should keep buffing it.
Just keep buffing it forever. Just continuously make it stronger.
Royal Guard sort of got a rework.
So I guess let's touch on that. Royal Guard originally did not do anything but protect you. Now, when you use Royal Guard, it is focused on DT more than damage. So you gain DT, and then you lose DT if you fuck it up.
Yeah, I do like the risk-reward mechanic, though. It does sort of...
No, this was the best possible route they could have taken with Royal Guard if they were going to revamp it.
Well, I do think that there are some things I would have done with Royal Guard. I'll touch on those, but as far as balance, I think this is a really good step in the right direction. Having the ability for someone to actually guard and learn the guard timings because they're not getting punished for having absolutely perfect timing is essential. I love the timing. I think the timing on 3 is the best, but the problem with 3's Royal Guard compared to this one is that 3's Royal Guard is too weak. It's not that you take damage. Taking reduced damage is not a problem. It's that you can't block most attacks from some of the weaker enemies. You can block the Prides, but if you get attacked by a Doulahan, you get attacked by the Fallen, you get attacked by half the enemy roster of the weaker enemies. They shred the guard just by holding it. And it's I understand if you're stronger attacks, but your basic attacks shouldn't be shredding this guard. Now, I do think this Royal Guard went a little bit overboard with having the ability to block literally everything.
But this Royal Guard, in the hands of someone who properly learns it, breaks the game completely. Because not only do you get infinite DT by just being good, you also fucking are untouchable.
I was also going to say, it creates a... now that we have the ability to create our own bouts, it literally creates turtle builds where people just sit behind the shield forever, and they're never threatened.
Perfect.
If they don't commit to something really extensive, so eventually they win by war of attrition if they just keep taunting and jump cancel spamming for DT. So, I mean, balance is something to consider. I know a lot of people in the community don't. A lot of people in the Reddit specifically the red subreddit, not the blue one, seem to be under the impression that balance doesn't matter as long as you provide variety, or at least it should be second to choice given the type of game this is. No, balance is just equally as important as choice, and there are ways this could have been managed. I think what the best solution, because we're kind of going over negatives, would have been to have the input timing of 3s with the ability to block pretty much every weaker attack of every enemy. But then things that were grabs and dedicated animations for enemies, those should have been able to get through your... Grabs can always bypass guards. That and most stronger attacks of bosses, those should have been able to break your guard. And you could block those if you had the right timing. Just like in 3. That way, most people could still adjust to it and had time. Still could use DT, and it'd be just fine. It would make taunts way more useful, considering they nerfed the DT out of them, and they've been nerfing them since 3. Even though 3s were already nerfed from 1s. No. But overall, I like that. The Royal Revenge input, my God, it took them 3 fucking games to give Royal Guard and a backward input that actually does something, because Ultimate was somewhat useful, but not really, unless you want to make a healing build, which is just a build that rewards you taking damage, being bad at the game. Dreadnought is an anime-esque ability. Wait a million years to charge an attack that does absolutely nothing for 16 seconds if you charge it to max. No. Royal Revenge comes along as, look, ranged Royal Guard attack. Can we talk about how useful that is?
Royal Revenge is honestly, it is better in my personal opinion than Dreadnought. I think we can all agree on that one. It's more useful, but good God, they really just made this one they made all the styles so friendly this time around.
Well,
so user friendly.
We're gonna do the negatives in a little bit, but yeah, I think they did a much better job with that.
Negatives. Cavalier.
No, hang on. We still have more styles. There are 4.
Well, okay, Trickster's fine. I think they took off the invulnerability frames on some of the dashes. I think they did there with Trickster, but I mean, Trickster is like the best it's ever been. You are untouchable.
That's fine because they gave you infinite dashes.
Yeah, I was gonna say you
nah.
You don't get hit anymore. You don't play those games anymore.
You're just like, wait a minute, I'm getting hit. Nope, because I dash forever. Like,
imagine having to actually practice your fucking parries. This was made by the Trickster game.
Also having another teleport is nice, but
I don't know. Dante's teleport feels kind of weak when like you play someone like V who has a proper teleport in this game. Dante's teleport just looks like trash by comparison. It's the same thing in every game Virgil's in. Like Virgil has a real teleport and Dante has this pussy ass little dash.
It's not a teleport. It's just high speed movement.
That's what makes it weak.
That's why it's called the trick.
The trick is that I die on the inside.
Swordmaster is still good because Swordmaster has never been bad and will never be bad.
Yeah, it must be so fucking hard to be good when you're the only one that expands the sword's moveset.
Again, Swordmaster just constantly changes up its arsenal from time to time. It's where the greatest pool of like tech comes from outside of like the physics engine and interactions with the physics engine. Well, usually it's the one that prompts that. So there's not. Like, I could go into detail on hours, but there's not really like outside of talking about the styles in general. There's not really much to. It wasn't nerfed or anything in any way. It was, I would say, it was just kept consistent. It's still useful. A lot of great moves are still there, like various launchers, the fire poles from Cerberus, stuff from.
No, like I mean, it was great. Like it was great, like all across the board. I don't think anyone.
All the stuff from DSD. My goodness.
I think at this point we'd have to get in the weapon since that's where the remainder.
Well, hang on. We have one more.
Oh,
Gunslinger.
Who cares? Great, let's move on.
What are you talking about? Are we not going to mention the fact that Gunslinger is garbage and because someone made the bright idea to nerf it into literally nothing, to dust?
Gunslinger's always trash.
No, it isn't, because if you play DMC3, it has an insanely high damage up with max upgraded Ebony and Ivory.
Listen, you can take your Gunslinger gang ass back to the fucking trash where you belong. No one uses you.
Look, Gunslinger in this game made guns their own combo tools. Now, I would say it's possible to do guns only combo mats. I don't think that. I think it's going to be a while, but
give it time.
This game is giving me hope of now you can legitimately do a guns only run. Not just because we can unequip it, but because the tools that are given to you via like double Kalina and like Dr. Faust, like the rocket jump, the fact that Ebony and Ivory can like juggle and do knockback with their guns, the charge shots always glowing, the shotgun slides, the very shit that you can do with Dr. Faust. There's so much to offer. There's so much combo potential with Gunslinger in this game. And there's so even if you're not up for combos, there's just so much, like, you've got your own dashes. Hey, you want a Trickster, but you don't want to switch to Trickster? Just pull out the shotgun. There's your dashes. You want protection? And pull out Dr. Faust and, have money. You want to be in the air and be safe? Kalina Ann. Or you want to range someone from a distance? And then you want, like, various utility and juggling and stagger? You can use Ebony and Ivory as well.
Hey, kid, you want a fucking laser? We got that, too.
Yeah, you want a laser? You want the power of science? Kalina Ann. Yeah. So, I think in general, the styles were done so much better than they were in 4. My goodness. Gunslinger and Royal Guard were trash in 4. Royal Guard was only useful for fucking buffering momentum, and like a satisfying release. But you still have a satisfying release here. We'll talk about quality of life improvements later. I don't know why I keep bringing that up. Now,
weapons.
I guess we sort of already went over the negatives of those styles, but I guess
for
we'll
the
go
most part, there's really not that many negatives worth discussing.
a lot of the negatives that we can talk about can go into the second part with quality of life improvements and expectations, because that can include lots of things.
Yeah.
So the weapons, Rebellion, still as good as it ever was. Sparta, just the same moveset as Rebellion.
as it always has been, as it always will be.
So Sparta's negative is that it only has the same moveset as Rebellion. Like that's it.
And then obviously we have Devil Sword Dante, which is the best sword by virtue
Where do
of
I
having
start this
abilities.
Thing? Having the ability to charge a little bit of DT to just make this stationary, like this rotating, like style themed mechanic of death and like combos is really nice. Like extra trickster dashes. Oh hey, passive guard that always follows you. Gunslinger stuff that helps you juggle, and then extra slices for Swordmaster. And you can, if you don't want to do that, you can passively map them between Swordmaster and do various combos. And they help you learn timings really, really well in the Void and when you're going through the game.
Delicious.
Also, DSD, it does take some getting used to because it does mess with muscle memory of a lot of people because, well, Helmbreaker is basically the backward input to allow for Aerial Rave to be the forward input. But yeah, I think that was a good change. Allowing Prop and Shredder as like basically a launcher in one of your combos for DSD, that was a great idea as well. I don't have to swap to a style anymore to do it. That's great. And this is one of the issues I had with 4. The main issue I had with 4 in the styles is that they mapped too many of the strong combo abilities behind styles, and they didn't give good enough general abilities to his basic kit outside of like launchers and some like niche moves like Stinger, and that was it. It's like on the ground stuff and a launcher. Here you go, nothing else. DSD comes along and is like, bitch, get that shit out of here. We have quality now.
This is gonna be a quality pick now. Cavalier sucked. Then we can all agree on that one. 100%.
Well, hang on a minute.
Garbage.
Having super armor is useful.
That's all it has.
It also does a lot of damage.
We call that just all it has is super armor.
But let's be honest, Cavalier R is the superior version. Having the ability to air is extremely good. Like, so good.
Yeah, no, like, it's almost like they knew there was something missing from the original fucking weapon.
Like, wait a minute.
We should do this.
Let's reskin it and give it a new ability, because that's a great idea.
That's what I want in my games.
So, honestly, I mean...
Okay, so...
I like Cavalier, but like...
Cavalier as a... While there is a better version of Cavalier, Cavalier by itself was a letdown.
I think the problem with Cavalier, besides it being too slow, is that, again, Cavalier suffers from the syndrome that DMC4 has. Too many of its good moves are mapped to Swordmaster. Like, its launchers are way too fucking slow and impractical. You're never going to use them in a variety of really slow setups in a combo that you took way too much time to prepare in the Void. That's not even the slightest bit practical reality. Like, you're, in most general circumstances, even for super specific creative ones, you're never going to find use for Cavalier. This is a huge issue. And I do like that the DMC team, as they said, they finally got to make a motorcycle weapon. Great. But it could have been a little bit better.
Now, could you make it better?
I think you had most of them there for it. You just mapped them behind a style and a reskin of the weapon. That was the problem. Granted, you didn't really do that with most of the other weapons, so that's good. But you fucked up with Cavalier. You fucked up pretty bit.
Okay,
like,
so
please don't do that again.
Please. Okay, so after Cavalier is
Cerberus.
My boy Look how they massacred my boy.
What do you mean?
Oh my goodness, it's so pathetic.
Okay, are we talking damage? Because I felt like as far as like combos, it was actually really good. I just don't know how to do a lot of the combos, but I've seen the setups. I've tried to work them. It's just I have a lot of muscle memory, revolver spams and setups because Cerberus had a really limited move set in 3. Outside of like Swordmaster, you couldn't really use it except for like parrying people and then doing revolver jump cancels. And that was it.
Okay, so let's break down what they did to my poor boy. Okay, so Cerberus. Okay, so extended moveset was fine. I do like the fact that there is 3 different elements, but they do significantly less damage. The fire pole's the only one that really does a significant amount of damage, which is fucking annoying as hell. I understand implementing lightning was not going to be easy because they had to do a 3rd element, and while I do think they had the right idea, it is super hard to combo into lightning to get what you want half the time if you don't fully fucking practice this weapon.
Well, so the lightning, larger versions of the extenders, I agree. They're just kind of there as an option to give you like they're mainly keep away materials. Like a lot of the moves for the electric nunchucks, like the aerial neutral one where he just like throws out the nunchuck and snipes you with it. A lot of those are just keep away moves. They're for crowd control or for having ranged options with Cerberus, so you don't feel completely useless. Now, I have a problem with their inputs. I don't like that a lot of them are mapped to aerials because I think there should have been aerials that were combos and that those inputs should have been mapped to like a back to forward input. That way that when people go into the aerial neutral, they don't immediately go into like a shotgun move that throws their target a million miles away and fucks up their combo. That really destroyed my ability to properly adjust to Cerberus because you have so much setup on the ground with good moves that are solid. They do, regardless of what you say, they do decent damage. They're not trash. Okay.
I think we should clarify that like no weapons game is inherently like completely.
You can
awful.
say it has a lower damage output than the previous game, but they still do decent damage in this one. It's just
that's a problem.
The enemies have been buffed considerably.
And that's
it's not that Cerberus has gotten weaker.
Why is my all-powerful Cerberus not killing everything in 2 hits? What is this?
Well, that's because it could do ice damage to everything.
What fucking is this, mangler?
So, in exchange for losing its ice damage, though, I'll say that the electric moves, even if you have a problem with them fucking up their combos, as far as dealing with certain enemies, Cerberus is probably one of the best items in Dante's kit for that, as far as like its own weapon, because Cerberus, when it hits enemies with the electric stuff, has the ability to stun them. So you can stun the Hell Judicas and basically like get them in a stagger phase and then like real impact them or hit them with a huge amount of damage and completely demolish them. So, it's useful. It's very useful as far as like dealing with specific enemies. The fire pole can offer you some quick attacks and some nice finishers, as well as a really decent drag down option in the air where you basically take the enemy and you like you spin pull them around to the ground as you fall like a stripper. I had a problem with that move in that it is my aerial neutral, so like throwing me down to the ground immediately because I threw out an that was mapped to style is really annoying. But some people find it useful as a combo setup, so I guess it's completely useless. I just prefer, again, if it were mapped to a different. So some of Cerberus's problems are not that the kit is bad. It just fucks with like what my muscle memory and setup would be based on what the base Cerberus is in that game and in previous games. And that what I'm used to is not what I get when I use the hold inputs for the electrical stuff as well as the fire staffs. I will say, however, the Thunder Age electric bulbs that you shoot from the backwards input where he's like, he says like, gotta move fast or something. Like when you hold the charge for Cerberus and you throw out the lightning bolts, that's Thunder Age. You throw out the 3 lightning clouds that track your enemies. That is the best move in Cerberus's arsenal. or as far as like range capabilities, and one of the best combo setups. I will debate anyone who says otherwise. Like,
all right, take it easy there.
well, just because like you can literally juggle anybody on top of it, or you can track them with it and have it slowly. It can do everything that you would want it to do. It's too useful. You just need to allow to be willing to make enough setups for it. Like you need to willfully train in the void or train in the campaign and practice situations where you can make a setup for it. And it will work in every single. It's just a matter of timing and practice. So yeah, Cerberus for me is kind of like I think an 8 out of 10. The 2 out of 10 that I'm missing is just again the inputs.
All right. Let's see what else is the next weapon on the list.
Balrog.
Oh, okay, Balrog. Have a bit of mixed feelings on Balrog here. Balrog is unbalanced because its basic attack can parry anything. So you can parry everything by just tapping Y. Cause my brother beat most of the game parrying everything by just tapping Y, and it was like legitimate strategy he could do.
Yeah, the fact. Look, I like that you can stop the Fury. Like, honestly, you could have just made the Fury more approachable, accessible. He's a really cool enemy, but like, man, he had so much potential to be so much better, and it kind of like you could have handled. It's much easier to handle him than justifying giving Balrog a parry window that just completely ignores everything. Literally everything that isn't like a strong attack.
You want to do something to me? Get the fuck out of my sight.
I thought, at least with Royal Guard, I can understand if Royal Guard has the ability to block anything because you have to time the block. What timing is there with Balrog's punches? You just hold it.
Timing?
Or just spam it.
What the fuck does that even mean?
The ignition mechanic, really cool for lore purposes, really cool for presentation. Ignite the flame now. Like, I really love that, but I do wish it took less time to ignite the flame.
I wish it took less time to ignite the flame.
To pull the trigger. To ignite my devil. Yeah, I do think most of its inputs were pretty solid for a Gauntlet weapon. There's a forward rush. It has an uppercut. I don't like that the other uppercuts are mapped behind ignition, though. That's kind of silly. Why is real impact mapped behind this? Like, you could have just nerfed real impact in terms of its damage, but give it like launch capabilities. Like,
you know what? Regarding the ignition, is there like a way to instantly activate ignition? Or do you have to continuously hit something or continuously hit?
Well, no, you can obviously punch and kick enemy, or you can do the dance, but like you don't instantly activate it.
I think there should have been a way like in DT to instantly activate ignition. I think that would have made it a lot better. Maybe a Swordmaster charge up or something.
Even if they didn't want to do it in base, which still would have been silly. The fact that DSD can get automatic sword, but Balrog can't get automatic ignition when he's had Balrog for longer is kind of silly. Oh, I didn't like that. Balrog overall, I think it had a really, really good potential to be a really good weapon, and I think it kind of fell flat. It's not anywhere near as much as Cavalier. It's still usable. It's at least usable.
It's serviceable for these purposes.
And a lot of the kicks, the Kapoor kicks, they're so satisfying and so useful. But again, they all are tied to ignition. Like, it's one of the things that I think I would have been fine with modders modding, because for practical purposes, even if you want to say as far as balance, all of those like stronger moves could have been nerfed a little bit, but still had the same launch capabilities, and Balrog still would have been good. Even if it did like basically nothing in terms of damage, it wouldn't matter. Really wouldn't matter, because you'd have your setups. And you would have other weapons. You can set up for openings with your other weapons that would do more damage anyway. So yeah, Balrog, solid weapon. It's just, it gets restricted by the ignition mechanic significantly.
All right. Any other weapons left?
Well, I kind of went over the utilities of the gun mount to Gunslinger. I will say that, like, Shotgun, still useful, I guess. But like a lot of those abilities, outside of like Kalina Am, like the guns mainly get their utility off of. That's it. Like except for Dr. Fat. Well, okay, all of them succeed at doing one thing, which is juggling or heavy damage.
Yeah.
Juggling, stagger, or heavy damage. All right, so three different things. They're all good at doing that in some way. Like Kalina Ann can stagger, can juggle, and can do heavy damage. Dr. Faust over time can do heavy damage and can juggle. Ebony and Ivory can't really stagger you outside of Gunslinger. The fire input inside of Gunslinger. But Shotgun can at least knock you back, do heavy damage, and can stagger you. But Ebony and Ivory can juggle you if you're launched by something else. So
yeah,
and it is useful. It is very useful for Trickster when people try to Trickster dashes around after charging DSD by keeping the enemy in the air so that they don't touch the ground. So they do have some combo potential in their own like individual abilities, mainly Dr. Faust and Ebony. But they're solid for what they are, and that's just guns. They get their utility off a Gunslinger. Not much to talk about. Solid guns. They're not bad. That's just kind of how things are. Let's see. As far as that, and then Dante's, I guess, his DT mechanics. His taunts are meh. Well, I'm just gonna skip over those. There's not much to talk about there. His DT, I think they handled it just fine. Sin DT was one of my favorite things. I do think Sin DT can break the balance of the game on the first playthrough, but I don't think Sin DT is intended for like to balance normal. I think it's intended for Son of Sparta and DSD. Because, I mean, you get it more than halfway through the game, so you can't really count it for that play, right?
Boy, Sin DT was perfection.
Actual Majin.
You mean
Let's talk about
false Majin? I completely agree with you because actual Majin already existed.
Yeah,
Mangler.
totally. Didn't
Mangler.
And was
Majin form was canon. Mangler.
Okay. So, I do like the restriction it provides that it's like, oh, you have to basically pour all your DT in to make the Sin Devil trigger. So it only becomes like much more useful once you have a full DT gauge unlocked from searching for all the purple orb fragments. And you only have it for a short period of time. Now, I do think the triple S thing that should have been the quadruple S should have been relaxed. That we should have been capable of getting into that either by having better stylish build up for weapons and abilities, or it should have been available on double S or basic S with some other conditions that were much more accessible. I didn't like having to go to triple S
every single time.
Yeah, I mean, after you do it, it's like amazing because you pretty much stay up there. But like, pretty much nobody is able to do that because you have to learn. Like, even the people who, again, practice this game professionally, like they can't just do it whenever they want to because they have to learn the stylish like values and the points build-up system for specific moves to figure out how to get up to 333. Like they can't just like blend different moves. They have to use very specific ones for build-up.
Yeah.
Which seems very unnecessary if most of them just have good points. Like it should work like the DMC3's stylish build-up system, and taunts should contribute significantly.
Yeah, I feel you. Although, wait, don't taunts already contribute significantly to the style meter already?
Not really. They only, they have a shorter cooldown in 3. Is what I meant. Like the cooldown needs to be a little bit shorter.
Oh, okay.
No, the DT gauge, the DT amount that you gain is fine. The taunts look fine. I would prefer them to be a little bit faster on the longer ones.
No, I think because if you're going to fucking make a long taunt, you might as well just you gotta commit. Otherwise, get the fuck out of here. So I think that's about all about gameplay for the most part. So we will come back later or
Whoa. That's just the characters. We have like 2 or 3 more. We have level design, progression, and enemy design.
I think we're gonna have to cover that later because it's 1:30 where I'm at and I still haven't eaten breakfast yet.
Why do you keep doing this?
Mangler, I awaken, I come talk to you, and then I go about my morning day.
No! Eat breakfast before... Well, actually, I haven't eaten breakfast.
Oh, then go fuck yourself! It's like 3 o'clock where you're at!
Not only today, and it's not hurting me.
Well, I'm sorry, Mangler, but some of us are already having troubles where we're at, so I'd like to eat while I still can.
Why don't you just get out of...
Listen, boy. I want to hear this conversation. I don't want to hear it from you. So
Alright,
I'm going to go ahead and
So part 2 will resume with what's
Level
the small
design.
section of gameplay, just level design, progression, enemy design, like next 4.
Yeah.
Next 3 points.
Yep. Alright, sounds good. So part 1 will be all right now. Thank you guys for your time as always, and have a nice day.